firing it up. It's fired up. All right, here's the details. We're live over at jblive.tv. That's the main stream. Audio stream is jblive.fm. The fastest, lowest latency stream, twitch.tv/Jupiter Broadcasting. And then, of course, the IRC, irc.geekshed.net, # Jupiter Broadcasting. Very special double Linux Unplugged today. I hope you brought your time machine because today we're going to the future and the past in a special Unplugged edition in the second half of the live stream today. How about that? Setting it up. Wes is busy over there cutting clips right now. I'm over here. I've got a clip I'm cutting down to the wire. It's down to the wire.
Some faith healers.
Just that, and there's another one in here. I think it's
Mommy needs a joint.
Those make me laugh every damn time. I'm into synth right now. I don't know if it's Drew's fault or what, but I could listen to that all the time. Which is good because I got a lot of it. So, Mumble Room's setting up. Let me go over there and say hi to the Mumble Room here, guys, in just a second. Just don't mind my poll of consideration. That's what you're hearing on the pre-show. This is one of the reasons you show up live, is because only on the pre-show do you get to hear the poll of consideration. Did you hear it there? I really want you to take in the nuance of it, so I'll turn off my gate here. Poll of consideration. You know, I sound a little better with the gate off, I think. Anyways, hello, Mumble Room. How the hell are you? Hold on. Don't hear you, so let me rerun a little Jack audio routing. Beep, 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 beep. Hello, Mumble Room. Come in. JB1 to Mumble Room. Over. Are you there, Mumble Room? Come in.
This is Mumble Room. Over.
Hello, Mumble Proper. JB1's got you. You are locked in on the live stream. Welcome to a double up day. I am drinking my large caffeine. So if you want to join the Mumble Room, if you're in the IRC, it's super easy. Just hit Bang Mumble, and then the bot that's always watching, will PM you the information. If you're just straight up not in the IRC room, I mean, that's fine.
But you're missing something.
This is how we communicate.
So you are missing something. But you are welcome to just Google Jupiter Colony Mumble and
Stop.
just find it over there, Jupiter Colony Mumble. Anyways, I mean, it's not so bad.
We think a lot about it too.
Yeah. And really, if you can handle it,
I'm a responsible adult.
you'll be fine. So apparently I just, while Wes is making clips, I can just make conversation with random crew clips. I'm good. I don't need anybody. I just got the soundboard. Y'all can go home. I got this. Anyways, so we're still setting up. We're still cutting clips and pushing buttons and stuff, but the Mumble Room's open. The main stream will start up soon. Crew will start filtering in the next minutes, and my face itches badly, so I'm going to go scratch it. Is that a good idea? I don't know. Tell me over at irc.geekshed.net /Jupiter Broadcasting. Maybe it's not a good idea, but it feels so damn good. Now I know how Levi feels when he's scratching dim ears.
Our trip to Dell, and this week we want to share some of the great stories, Linux memories, and impressive hardware, like high-performance computing. Running along the center of many of the buildings we visited was networking, power, and all kinds of infrastructure for what Dell calls its labs, but I call them mini data centers. One of the coolest that we got to see was Dell's high-performance computing lab, also known as HPC, and it's ranked as one of the fastest top 500 supercomputers in the world.
Right now is our Zenith system. It's our largest HPC system in the lab. Today we have 384 nodes in place. Very soon the system is going to grow over 512 nodes. It's at number 372 on top 500 list right now.
This team creates white papers and helps their customers build all kinds of interesting workloads, including some that could improve lives. This data center is much larger than I think could probably show up on camera because it also goes quite a ways the other direction. Right. So it's very large, and you were showing us around, and one of the things you mentioned to us was that for example, a workload that can be greatly improved with high-performance computing is customized cancer treatment. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Sure. So HPC is a field where you can have many different applications. HPC is not just one application. There are many use cases for HPC in energy, for example, oil and gas, seismic processing, or reservoir simulation. There are many applications in the life sciences area. One of the emerging areas has been genomics, being able to analyze DNA and coming up with customized treatment options to treat certain diseases.
And of course, I asked if they mine Bitcoin. Let's just say that they said no. On the other end of the spectrum, you have the modular data center, or MDC as they call it. It's like the whole data center in a crate idea, but turned up to 11 with their own spin on it. They're super proud of their own secret sauce built into this thing. In fact, so proud, they're a little conflicted about our cameras. I'm told that there is super confidential stuff. They call it IP. That's corporate speak for intellectual property. And they don't want us shooting the inside. So I'll just go inside and tell you about it. But we can shoot the outside of it.
This is a modular data center.
The modular data center. The future of the data center, potentially.
You can buy one of these and put it in your backyard.
Yeah, this is a product. This thing right here, that's a product. I'm going inside that. I can't take you, but I'll tell you how cool it was. Inside, it was packed with gear. Big GPU compute boxes, monster networking, data storage, blade servers, and more. It's a data center on demand, if you can afford it. And while I couldn't get them to spill the beans, I can tell you they're very proud of the cooling technology, including the ability, in some configurations, to cool it with fresh air.
Wow, we do have customers.
That was awesome. That was I can't describe how cool that was as somebody who used to work in data centers. Look, my hair's a little messed up. But that, if you can afford it, you should get yourself one of those. That is an amazing amount of compute in a small space, and I can't even imagine. You're able to control so many more of the variables. It's really neat. So what do you call it? Just the
Dell's Modular Data Center.
Dell's Modular Data Center. Get one for your home. I'm going to chronicle the entire adventure, behind the scenes walking around a Dell, even driving down there at jupiterbroadcasting.com/rover. But I wanted to give you a little bit of flavor. They let me park and camp in their corporate parking lot. They let me park my RV in their corporate parking lot. And that let me observe Dell in a way that I don't normally get to see. 24 hours a day as people came and people left. I got some unique insights and I got a ton of work done. And one of the things that really resonated with me, especially after talking with Peter from their server team, is they have a religion at Dell, and that's work upstream.
The idea basically is customers are using operating system update tools, Red Hat Package Manager, Ubuntu Landscape, etc., right? And they prefer as much consistency as possible from a process change management perspective. In order to help them do that, what we've done is Matt Domsch developed a set of tools called firmware tools, and basically what that does is it takes the Windows executable updates for the firmware, strips the Windows binary off, and repackages as an RPM. We have kernel modules that are actually present in the upstream kernel that enable you to take that RPM package and apply a BIOS update, and then we publish them in a repository. So the basic idea is using the same Red Hat Package Manager tools, same Ubuntu tools, same CentOS tools, whatever you're using. You can now basically pull BIOS updates, and not just the BIOS, but firmware for the RAID controller, the NICs, the hard drives, the
right
backplanes,
through your package manager,
right through the package manager.
With an update process that you're already going through. All of those things, are going to be standardized for your customers.
That's exactly right, and even better than that, because Linux has a robust dependency framework for sorting out interlocks, dependencies, all those types of things. So, for example, if there's a system BIOS update or a PERC update that requires a system BIOS update, you can build that dependency in the code, and therefore all of that gets resolved using Linux native update framework. So it's exactly what the customer wants. One tool set that they've already defined, that you can use for doing OS updates as well as hardware BIOS updates, firmware updates, and then, of course, the utilities.
Looking back at all of my conversations while I was down in Austin at Dell, chatting with John Terpstra had to be one of the highlights.
Welcome to the John Action Show. And this hour, John will be joining us.
Now, John came in to talk about OpenStack, but he and I started reminiscing about days gone by. SCO, United Linux, and even Turbo Linux.
Turbo Linux was initially built from a whole range of bits and pieces, mostly based on a Red Hat base.
I vaguely remember, yeah.
But then in '99, we decided to start from a clean base. The clean base we began with was Red Hat 5.0, and we substantially modified that and changed what packages we included and how we built it, and set out to build a clean distribution that had very little in the way of background errors. One of the key challenges of the early Linux builds was that the building of the standard C library, glibc, would leave behind symbolic references to the libraries on the system it was built on. So you would end up with some runtime dynamic linker errors. If you turn the error reporting up high enough, you'd see them in the logs. Yeah, there's some really interesting work done in the early days. But in any case, I worked with Turbo Linux, and then in late 2000, I switched across to Caldera as VP of Technology.
Oh, really?
I was involved in supervising the acquisition of the SCO Unix Systems Group into Caldera. But all through that, an initiative was born to create a unified standard business Linux that was going to be called Common Business Linux. But when the discussion started, we had Mandrake Soft involved, Connectiva in Brazil, Turbo Linux in Japan, Caldera in the US, and SUSE in Germany. Mandrake Soft ended up pulling out, but
didn't they launch a product
called United Linux? Was the initiative.
Right.
And the purpose of that was to build a platform that had a standard Unix, a standard Linux kernel build, standard set of header files and compiler toolchain configuration, standard everything. And each of the participants in that would brand it their own way, so there would be minimalistic branding. Ultimately, the engineering team for that was based inside SUSE. But then some legal action happened. Caldera, who had meantime renamed themselves as the SCO Group, started to take...
Yes, the wound still stings.
Started to do some very nasty things.
Yes, that was a huge topic on our... It was one of our main stories for many years.
Well, one can still go to grocklaw.net and get a good background on that.
Yeah.
And that kind of destroyed the United Linux initiative.
Right.
But all of that technology rolled up under SUSE Enterprise Linux today, and that's a pretty good platform overall.
Interesting.
Like Red Hat. Red Hat has done superb work. Each of these companies have done superb work in their own right.
Do you feel like in some ways the different distributions are in some sense more unified? I mean, we don't have necessarily all of the things that United Linux had, but things are getting more common, more the same. I mean, it seems to me like there's less differences between Linux distributions now than there were, say, back during United Linux initiative.
You know, Linux is Linux is Linux is Linux.
Yeah.
And so long as the Linux distribution complies with the Linux standard base specification, people aren't even conscious of that today, but
yes, right.
that was a unifying force, a very important one. And Linux across the board is a very stable, business-ready platform. It's become very ubiquitous. And if there is a tragedy or a sadness in any area, it's that we don't hear so much of Linux today simply because it is everywhere.
Yeah.
It's in the smallest devices, even watches.
Yeah.
It was clear to us that Dell is all in on Linux, from IoT to the enterprise. But their most famous Linux efforts in our crowd is Project Sputnik, which has started seeing some real success.
In the last 2 years, we've had 100% growth year over year.
And I asked Martin George what was the tipping point that finally resulted in shipping a product.
And they came back with pretty simple stuff. They want vanilla Ubuntu. Back then, 8 gigs of RAM. They did not want Windows preloaded. They wanted it less expensive than Windows. These are all sort of common sense things, but this alone was what they were looking for. And then when we did launch it with my blog, I thought we'll get some interest from developers, and it was absolutely crazy. I think we got like 9,000 views the first day. 15,000, 20,000. And just to give you an idea, I think at that point, I have a chart that shows views before that were about 120, 60, 70, and so it went like that. And so I think it showed that there was a crowd out there who were starved for something like this. And then the real tipping point came when we said, okay, we want to do a beta program with this. We want to know who'd be interested. And we can give you, I think it was 15% off, nothing huge. So if you could fill out this form, and it wasn't just a yes, I want to be part of it. It was
I remember.
It was sort of what OS are you running, what industry are you in, what languages are you working with, what laptops, etc. And once again, thought that maybe we get about a couple hundred, 300, and we got 6,000. So that was the thing that said, okay, let's make this a real product.
You might have heard Barton's name before. He's been around the community for a little while now.
My experience with Linux came through Unix, right? Way back in the day, Sony Tokyo had their own Unix distribution, believe it or not. They had Workstation. And then I, too, was at Sun, and then I managed the relationships with Red Hat, SUSE, Free Software Foundation in the open source office. And so one of the big things, the Java trap that Richard Stallman talked about, is you still had proprietary bits. And so I worked with the team there to get those out. And then I had to lobby each of the distros, Debian, Ubuntu, OpenSUSE, and Fedora, to actually get it in. And I remember being down at DebConf, I forget, whatever, in Argentina, and actually sitting with the guys there and sort of getting them to put it in there. So that's sort of where I first started getting to know the community and whatnot.
Barton's had a key role in getting Project Sputnik rolling, but he's having even a bigger impact on Dell than that.
He's showing us a path for how to be really personally authentic. He's showing us a path for how to build real relationships with people and how to just be human, right? Which is a challenge when you're in a big company.
And you can take him up on that offer to engage with the community.
One of the things that I like most about the project is direct communication with the community. And some of it's on the blog and the comments or the forums, but the thing I like the most is Twitter, right? So I can't get to all of them, but I really enjoy talking with people around the world and being able to answer questions. And oftentimes it's throwing those questions over to the technical folks and saying, let me ask the team and get back to you. But it's really neat to have that one-on-one direct connection with customers, which is, it's great for the product, but it's actually something that I really enjoy too.
Yeah. What's the best way to get to you on Twitter?
Barton 808. 808, area code for Honolulu, Hawaii.
The Linux Action Show is independent media. Our trip to Dell was made possible by our patrons at patreon.com/JupiterSignal and our sponsors. Go to DigitalOcean.com and sign up for an account and use our promo code. Here's the thing. You apply it and you get a $10 credit.
Seeing that DO ad, that reminds me. DigitalOcean was like, we don't get as much hype as we used to in one of their recent quarterly calls. And I was like, it's because you're not on Last anymore. That's what's up. I don't know if that's really true. I like to tell myself that. Hey, Wes Payne, how's that rapid clipping going over there?
Clippity clippity clip.
Wes has been clipping up 5 clips.
I think it'll be only 4. I think
5?
it'll be only 4.
Whew.
But
you'll
be the judge.
Hey, we look at that huge ass mumble room. Hello, huge ass mumble room. Hello.
Hello.
How do you even download this many at once? Hello. Oh my God, it's good to see you. Oh my God. Wes, computers are hard.
You could open a terminal and we could netcat this.
Is this really happening right now?
What?
Are you trying to get me You're trying to get me to netcat FLAC files now?
Yeah, man.
First,
Next up, I'll have you copying some floppies.
why don't you K-exec into the old Ubuntu there, and then
Hey, when has KExec never not solved the problem?
why can't I select a bunch of files and download? That's true. It's pretty great. Anyways, how you doing, Cheesy?
I'm doing good. Don't copy that floppy.
Ha.
You know, it's never good. It's never good.
That's right. It's much easier to use a USB flash drive.
I don't understand why. Okay.
this,
So
bro.
if I play it first, then I can save as. Aha, that's the trick. You gotta play the file, then you save as. Oh man, Wes, it redoes the name. You know when life was easier is when we all just were using Dropbox. That's when life was
I can put it
easier.
on Nextcloud.
Yeah, just put it on the horse, because Telegram changes the file names.
What?
Yeah, it changes them to the date.
Oh, right.
So. Anyways, I was playing that old retro Delsky episode because we're reviewing an XPS 13 today on the podcast. So.
Yeah, I was actually going back through and listening to it, and watching it. While
That was a hell of a
streaming.
production, really, when you look back at it. And that was part 2. So there was another part.
Yeah, it was a big deal, man.
Ooh, that was a lot of work.
Was that the first time you drove Jupes down to Texas?
Yeah. Paid for it myself out of pocket.
Yeah.
I mean, really, like
Parked
I
in
said
their
there,
parking lot.
like I said there, it was financed at the end by the patrons. Well, really, it was financed by 80% by my credit card. Hey, it's
Man,
funny. That's
won't-
hilarious. Ha ha.
Won't that sucker pay for it?
Ha ha ha.
All right. It's up in the LUP raw.
Thank you, sir. Man, Wes, I don't know. I don't think putting a mic on your seat was a good idea.
Look, I did make some chili this weekend, okay? It's not
Did
my
you?
fault. Yeah, I did.
Did you sous vide it?
Damn it, man! I've been thinking
No,
about making
pressure
chili.
cooked it, though.
Tell me about
Oh, yeah.
it. Did you Instapot?
Yeah.
You Instapot?
Although I need
Oh,
to
you
make some
good man.
adjustments. I was kind of merging and mashing recipes, and I had like a little. I wanted.
Did you just put them in the root of the LUP folder?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Just sort by date, like a same person.
Oh my god.
That's the rule with that folder.
We gotta
apparently.
get it. No, it's not the rule. Hey, how's it going?
Well, that's Joe.
Hello, Alex. Well, now you're making me hungry talking about food. God.
Oh, I'm getting trigged. So okay, do a big old. Oh yeah, download. Boom, got this. I got this. Yeah.
So tell me,
I've been
Wes,
wanting
was it
homemade
like
chili.
regular chili with beef, or was
Yeah,
it
tell
like
us about
that
this chili.
horrible turkey chili?
Oh.
Oh yeah, of course it was beef.
Okay, goodness.
So, Wes, I could use your guidance here on which you think is. All right.
Yeah, why don't we just like run through them real quick? Or...
So maybe number 4. Probably could drop number 4.
Yeah.
You know what I'm thinking too, now that I've done this, is I'm thinking maybe processing them a little bit wouldn't be bad, which I might do just really quick.
Okay. I could also if you.
No, I can do. I'll do it animal style. You know what I mean. You know what I mean.
Like they do on the Discovery Planet.
I have a scripted process that I'm only saying because I don't think Drew or Joe are watching or listening, but if they were, they'd be offended right now.
It's like Joe in the box.
Yeah, basically. It uses data and machine learning. Not really, actually.
To complete the experience, I think you need like a little pop-up though that criticizes you for the quality of the recording and then still processes it.
Oh my god. Savage, dude. That was so savage.
I didn't mean it in a bad way.
No, it's just that's just what's so great about it. Oh, it was so savage.
Savage is the Nextcloud discussion on Late Night Linux yesterday.
Yeah, that was very savage as well. You're right. All right, let's see how this sounds here.
The big difference is
That sounds pretty good. Nice work.
All right.
Nice work.
Yeah, you might. I think the labels are good, but you might want to be familiar with what the heck. he
I think
say
I got it.
different.
No, I think your labels are great. For this week, we worked so hard we even made a phone call. I joke, but I hate phone calls. I hate it. You know, they're so weird and awkward.
You know, I was listening to someone discuss like modern rules of like just being polite, and it was nice to hear someone who was like chastising you for your bad emails, but then also agreed that in the modern era, it's rude to call without texting first. You don't just surprise call anymore.
Yeah.
You got to say like,
no,
hey, you
don't
got some
start
time?
this discussion again. No, not this discussion again.
All right.
It's so impersonal if you don't call someone. Like, I don't know.
It's true. No, it does make a difference. That is
Well,
true.
you can still call. You just make sure that they're available. You don't call out of the blue.
Yeah, that's, hey, you available? Hey, can I give you a
Yeah.
call? Yeah, that kind of thing. Geez, that's a big mumble room. Woo!
You, sir, had a great discussion about that.
I wonder what the old CPU usage is on that droplet. That's just remarkable. I love seeing that.
Fantastic.
Should we just start getting ready? Should we like do all of our like, recording bits and? Or do you have a beverage? I don't think you have a beverage.
No, I just finished mine.
Yeah, you should get. I got a beverage, so you should get that. Oh,
I need to set up my file. This
Oh,
is
yeah.
337, right?
yes, sir. Yes, this is the first of two we are doing. So, hello everybody. If you're just joining us now, we are setting up for not one but two Linux Unplugs. And
Only 1,000 episodes to go before it's episode leaked.
We'll get there.
I was just looking at that.
We'll get there.
And Chris, how was the show last Friday with that terminal software?
Great. I thought I had a lot of fun.
Will that one be available in the extras?
It's in because it's so visual. We put it up on the YouTube channel because it's.
Okay.
We'll
cool.
link to it in the show notes today. I think we put it in housekeeping, didn't we?
Yeah, it's in there.
We put it. It'll be in housekeeping. So.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Cool.
Hey, 1,000 episodes would take you 19.2 years. Just thought I'd leave that in there.
Well, there's a way to hack that, right? Unplug daily.
Bi-weekly episodes.
Unplug daily. Now you get there quick if you do it daily. Unplugged hourly. Hello, this is your Unplugged hourly update. Nothing has changed. We'll be back next hour.
Someone's Arch server broke with an update. Oh, it's fixed again.
Someone responded on Reddit with a witty response, and somebody then replied to that with something witty, and then somebody replied to that with something witty, and now they've created the whole theme chain, and somebody's giving each other gold. We'll be back in 1 hour. Hi, Chris is here again. It's your hourly update. That thread's now dead. That's all I had. Had some soup.
You know what? You're going to have to get to the
Kinda
point
like
where you
this
start
thing.
inventing news, like the 24-hour news channels.
Oh, man.
Collecting all Git pull requests.
Oh,
All the Linux.
That could actually be like, this is Gitwatch Hourly. We've seen a pull request on, that could actually be kind of funny.
Gitwatch actually sounds like a great name, too.
Yeah, I know. Gitwatch.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, yeah.
Have you ever considered creating a RSS feed for whatever you put on YouTube that doesn't go in the other feeds?
Well, we don't always make if what we put on YouTube we don't necessarily put it somewhere for download, and YouTube doesn't allow us to link out YouTube videos for download. So it's kind of tricky that way.
Right, we'd have to set up secondary hosting, I guess.
Yeah, we'd have to make a local copy of the video and then host it somewhere, and which we have done stuff like that in the past, but it.
Why don't you just give them the full 17 gig video file?
Yeah, the raw version 17 gigs. Yeah,
How do you feel about ProRes?
Yeah, ProRes the most least conservative record. It's like the files this thing generates are if we could figure out the ProRes LT codec, we'd be cutting our file sizes in half. But we're just like full ProRes. So funny enough, Handbrake just butchered the encoding for that terminal video. I even had to do a slightly nicer, I notched the encoding quality up a couple, and there's one other thing. What else? Oh, instead of baseline, I did a main profile.
Okay.
And it just butchered all of the text screens. It just there's encoding blocks all over the place, and it just really mangled the text. It made some of the terminal text unreadable. So I ended up just uploading the full ProRes to YouTube. It just took forever.
Yikes.
I just went full ProRes.
YouTube doesn't mind.
Probably not.
They got encoders sitting around.
To encode your Stadia streams.
It turns out if you try hard enough, you can.
That might not be true of Stadia, though.
I'm a little out of it. I'm just a little bit out of it. I've been a little out of it all day. It's almost like I'm more sensitive to bad sleep. When I just lived with bad sleep, with sleep apnea, I think it just became a normal way of life. But now when I've had a couple of missed nights, it's like It's like I have no tolerance. It's like I had a tolerance break from bad sleep, and now I've got super low tolerance to bad sleep.
Well, before you were just in like a
Snowmageddon up there?
weird sort of semi-state where you're never really awake.
Yeah, and then I
but
wonder.
you learn to function in it.
Well, that's what I wonder. I'm wondering, like, is this what I was like? And I just didn't realize that there was a difference, or is this worse? That's where my head's at right now.
When you're super tired, though, you're not exactly able to even think about much, are you? So you can't think, oh, I'm super tired. You're just so tired, you're just trying to get through.
Not being able to think is kind of normal for me, though. I tell you,
And it serves you very well.
It's a normal state of mind. I tell you, I am so hardcore suffering from the 3-day phenomenon right now, which sucks because I'm trying to plan stuff 2 weeks out, which that sounds like, 2 weeks. I plan like, a whole year, people would think. Not Chris. I'm struggling to plan 2 weeks out. So, it's rough. It's Project Off Grid, though. It's going to be worth it. All right. Are you ready over there, Wes?
Yeah, I guess so.
You gentlemen on the Connects of Sources, I feel like I should probably grab water.
You should probably, yeah.
Hey, Chris.
Yeah. Hey, Carl.
Super quick question for
Yeah,
you.
man.
Do you think I could bug you to get into the housekeeping again? Texas Linux Fest extended the call for papers.
Cheesy, you mind dropping a link in the old Keeping of Houses for that? When's it wrap?
Sunday at 5 p.m. in Central Time.
There you go.
Sweet, I appreciate it.
It's officially been brought blessed.
That week is Conference Apocalypse. I'll tell you
my
what. It's
gosh.
Linux Fest Northwest.
Yeah.
Then Red Hat Summit. Then
Yeah.
Texas.
It's so crazy. I think Alex and probably Brent, you're also welcome if you want to go to Texas
heck
Linux
yeah.
Fest.
Oh, I'm there.
I imagine some of you will fly in for Linux Fest, stay at the studio, and then we'll all just fly out to Texas.
That's my plan. We were just talking about that this morning.
Yeah.
You
Which
said
actually
the
sounds
26th?
really fun.
It's call for papers ends on the 26th at midnight. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
You guys are gonna have fun.
I hope so.
We should rent.
Hi.
We should rent a giant ass bus and drive everybody down all at once.
What do you mean? What do you mean? I have a giant ass bus.
Oh yeah.
With Wi-Fi.
See, that's that thing where
And
I
a
make
toilet.
it it's your idea.
I don't think it's a pretty hardcore drive. And how much time do we have between the end of Linux Fest?
A week.
I mean, I do have to park the RV somewhere after Linux Fest, so
We'll need to make sure the bus has good acoustics for recording, though.
I mean, proven fact. 2 episodes ago, we
try
recorded Linux
Linux.
Unplugged there. It's got a whole
May
podcast.
as
It's got a
well.
podcasting studio built in, Wi-Fi. The thing is so it's a 6-day hard drive of like 10, 11-hour driving days, although not impossible. Or it's a very pleasant 4-hour flight on Alaska Airlines, where they have wonderful snacks, and I watch a movie on my iPad. So, I mean, I don't know.
But Chris, which one's more memorable?
Oh, definitely the road trip. I mean, if you guys really want to do it, all you got to do is talk Adia into it. Then she'll hype me up, and then
Do you know? I'd say yes to both.
we have
However,
the new
that
electrical
is-
system. We'll have the new electrical.
That is
system.
a lot of poop to drive down the road.
Not really, because it's not much more than when I have 3 kids. And let me tell you, they're a toilet paper using bunch. Wes knows all about my toilet paper woes.
That's right.
Well, I mean,
And you
think about
don't
this,
want
at
more
least-
details.
At least you
Oh
can
my
have someone
God.
dump the black tank for you each day.
Oh, wow. I don't know. I don't know if I'd want to ask anybody to. I don't know. I'm kind of a pro
them the
at
gloves.
I
There you
gotta
go.
gloves, girl, please. Dude, I can dump that black tank in 5 minutes. Boom, boom, in and out. I am a black tanking pro.
I can't imagine it's any worse than dealing with a backed up main sewage line.
No. The thing that's worse about the whole RV black tank situation is sometimes you're downwind of somebody else dumping their tanks, and there is nothing more revolting than the smell of someone else's tanks. Like, your own tanks are bad, but it's tolerable. Like, I don't know what it is, but it's tolerable. Somebody else's tanks is retching. So that's the things they don't tell you about. Hashtag RV lifestyle is sometimes you're downwind of somebody else's black tank. Don't ever be downwind of a black tank. Don't ever be downwind of a black tank.
I used to own rental property, and they called and said the main sewer's backed up. So I brought my stuff because I have equipment to ride that stuff out. And when I went to check the cap, the clean out cap, and there's so much pressure, I actually got sprayed head to toe.
No. I actually got sprayed once with crap water too. I think I caught it on camera even. What? Yeah.
And It's a good thing my mouth was shut because I had some on my lip and everything.
Oh, dude.
One of the funniest moments in my life is I was going down the road, coming back from work with a coworker buddy of mine, and we had the windows down. Oh my God, I'm just laughing even thinking about it. And we had the windows down, and we were driving. Yeah. And we're talking, and we're just shucking and jiving, and we're going down the middle of a huge, giant field. It's actually just right here by the studio. It's down by the airport. And as we're driving by, the water that fertilizes the field, that is part water, part chicken shit, comes blasting through the car and into my buddy's open mouth, who was like talking about something. It squirts chicken shit right in his mouth.
No.
But also all over his car, including because it had been spraying for a couple of hours, there was a chicken shit, like, I don't know what you'd call it, barge? I don't know, there's like a mound of it on the road, wet, sticky, and so it got on his wheels.
It sounds dangerous.
So then, after work, we go outside and the whole parking lot smells like chicken shit. And it's his car, and it got inside the car, and then he took it home, and he washed it, and it still smelled like chicken shit the next day. And he got it in his mouth.
Oh, dude.
That's the worst.
How do you even go on from that?
Burn it all.
Yeah, exactly.
I just remember the moment he got that stuff sprayed right in his mouth, and I knew what had happened because I could hear it, and I heard it splatter against the car. But to hear him freak out with that chicken shit in his mouth, and we had nothing in the car for him to drink. Oh, God, it was good. Good old small town Arlington, where who cares if it sprays over the road?
I got water in my eyes now.
Yeah, I'm crying.
At my work, we came into a building that had been vacated over the holidays for about a week, and they had the septic system back up into the building. It had just been sitting for like 3 days.
Oh, man. Jeez. Well, welcome to Linux Unplugged, everybody.
Y'all reminded me of my deer spray story.
Deer spray, which is piss, right?
Well, so I was cleaning this deer for a client. Deer had turned at the last minute, and so there was no exit wound, and it entered in the right spot, like near the heart and lungs, but it buried down in the guts. So basically, like a gut shot deer, but without the exit hole, there was no like relief for pressure. So as we're cleaning it, I'm like, hey, whatever you do, don't puncture the admin. We're just gonna skin it and get everything from the outside. We're not even gonna open it up. And as we were doing that, everything was fine until we get up near the head, and we end up cutting the neck, and it just sprays me all over my face with just guts and bile and piss and shit and blood, and just everything just stewed all together under pressure and just sprayed all over me. It was bad.
Yeah. There's a surprising amount of pressure that builds up in that situation right there. That's really it. Well, now that we've gotten that out of our system, should we talk about Linux? What do you say? Yeah. I think I'm ready.
We seem warmed up now.
Yeah. Guys, on Source Connect, let's do our record biz. You all ready over there? You all ready for this? Dude, I kind of need that. All right. 3, 2, 1, record. All right. And now let's count to 4 like the gangsters that we are. Old school, not new school.
Of course.
But not like old school either.
Classic old school.
1, 2, 3, 4.
4.
And now our moment of silence, this sacrificial stream moment brought to you by Joe in 3, 2.
The cone of silence.
Tricked you. It was actually the cone of silence. It just works
the
now.
whole time.
I got you guys. All right. Well, let's get this show on the road then. Ba-dum-bum. Bum. Ba-bum-bum-bum.
Quick question.
Yeah.
And were there highlights for our
No, gosh darn it. There are not.
Okay, that's fine. I just want to make
you
sure
know
I was on
we're
the
just
same
gonna we're
page.
just gonna go. We're just gonna go. Got an email saying that my Pine phone has shipped. What about you, Cheesy?
Oh, yeah. I got that email. Super excited.
Pine noticed you weren't on the show last week, and they're like, well, what could we do to get Cheese back on the air? What they said is, we'll just ship the Pine phone. That's pretty amazing, man.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good call. They got me back here.
It's the Braveheart edition, so this is going to be the rougher one. But they're shipping out, and I don't know. I guess maybe I'll have mine in the next week or so.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, man. Right now, I think they're shipping with the... I think it's... I don't remember which OS it's shipping with, but it's just a default build that they're testing with. But there are a few out there already available.
We should come up with some...
somewhat working conditions.
We should come up with some fun projects in House West. Something... play around.
We got to
with
put it through its paces.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
We got to demand the utmost performance. This thing has to be completely production. Oh, wait.
It's our responsibility to the community.
Actually, we just want to play around.
Yeah. I'm a little
Absolutely.
jealous.
I'll redo that since that was turned down. Oh, yeah. This board's all set for my road mode.
Road mode.
Oh, man. That when I'm remote, I have to manually adjust the levels,
Like a savage.
Yeah. Woo! Hello, friends. Welcome into Linux Unplugged. My name is Chris.
My name is Wes.
Wes, we have quite the fun episode today because for more than a few weeks, we've had some really great hardware in-house. We've been kicking it around, benchmarking it, and just recently put it through some upgrade paces. So we'll tell you about our thoughts on the new Dell XPS 13. Well, new-ish. More on that, too. And I'm not alone in saying that we have so much to get to. So to help me say it, I'm going to let Alex and Chi say it. Hey, guys, say something great about the show today.
It's a big show.
Yeah, that's what I usually go with. That's my usually.
Something great about the show today.
Oh, Alex. Dang it. You're wrecking
that
this.
was funny.
You're wrecking
I'm
this.
sorry if it wasn't, but
Okay, good
Accepted.
enough. I mean, I'll give you a check mark for effort, but I'm not giving it much more than that. And of course, really, the thing that we can rely on today is the Mumble Room. We have a huge virtual lug. Time-appropriate greetings, Mumble Room.
Hello.
Good
The deafening cries of the Mumble Room.
That's massive in there. I mean, I don't know. It doesn't really come across as like super massive, but there's 14 on air, 21 people total just hanging out in the Mumble streaming. And
it's the place to be.
It's, these Tuesdays are really kind of a lot of fun because we stream live. We're doing a double recording. We won't be live next week. And so we get to hang out for a couple of hours, talk Linux, or sometimes the conversations go in weird directions. I'll admit that's true for the pre-show.
And that's why you want to show up live.
But as always, we have some community news to get into, some really interesting stuff, really kind of important community news this week. There's two things that I think are worth chewing on this week. And one of them is when a community gets left out. Now, it's both good news. There's a preview. It's both good news and bad news in this case. Fedora CoreOS has come out of preview, and they've announced that it is available for general use. That's great. But it also means there's a community of users, the ones that ran CoreOS Container Linux, that are left out. They were told they should migrate to the new Fedora CoreOS. However, documentation is not yet provided to actually make that migration possible. Sometimes these things happen. And as all great things in open source, there's a fork, and a community has spun up around Flatcar Container Linux, which is a direct compatible continuation of Container Linux, a new community forums. But what are the admins that are running this in production left to do? They have to decide to either go with a non-compatible conversion to Fedora CoreOS.
Right, which will require a bunch of manual interventions.
Or use this community offshoot fork of a product that's no longer around. It's a lot to maintain, and these are production-grade systems. If you'll recall, one of the great advantages of Container Linux was centralized configuration across all your different machines using etcd and automatic OS updates. Isn't the irony here that the distribution that provided seamless automatic OS updates has gone away, and now you are faced with a completely incompatible upgrade? Isn't there some rich irony to that?
Oh yeah, and I think the team at Fedora understands that too. They've got some sections here in the announcements like, how do I migrate? What do I have to do? And what are the stability guarantees? And unfortunately, kind of just due to the way Fedora works, they're not in the same ballpark.
And there's something else that's embedded in this story. this has all really been pitched as a positive thing because it's all been really about what's happening with CoreOS when it goes over to Red Hat after the acquisition. Then the story became what happens with Fedora and their Atomic version versus CoreOS. And, oh, isn't it funny that now it's Fedora Core again? Like, all of this has been talked about a lot, and them going from a preview to a general availability release and mastering images for AWS and whatnot has been all talked about fairly positively, but it sort of whitewashes over the reality of users that are left behind in a transition like this. And it particularly is stinging when it's enterprise-grade software.
Right, you've been paying for it, and you're using container Linux. They get bought, and now you have to change how what infrastructure is running your business.
So here's my question to the virtual lug, and I'll start with you, Jill. Is this just sort of the way the dice rolls in the tech industry, or is there a better job we could do in having a wider conversation about both the positive aspects, but the negative aspects as well? I think you're muted, Jill, but I was tossing that to you. Jill, are you there? Come in, Jill. I think she went away. All right. Does anybody else want to handle it? Brent, do you want to take anybody? I'll set it up for you. I'll give an edit point. Does anybody else want to take that?
I could if you need me to, yeah, for sure.
Okay, let's start with that. So here's what I want to ask the virtual lug. And Brent, I'll start with you. Does this just sort of happen? Is this the way you roll the dice in the tech industry? Sometimes you bet on something that goes away, and that's just how it rolls? Or is there something different we could be doing here?
Well, I don't know about is there something different we could be doing? I think we need to put a bunch of smart people in the same room and solve that one. But it feels like this is just the reality of the tech industry. Like if you look at open source projects, that's certainly true. But even if you look at the proprietary stuff and corporations, they change all the time. So it's almost like you have to expect that the landscape is just always unsure or always changing. Maybe that's the thing you can count on. And so I don't know. I wish I had a better answer, I guess.
No, it is always changing. That is definitely something you can count on. And Carl, I kind of wanted to toss this point over to you. So is this sort of the rub when you run on something that's a bit of an experimental OS for your enterprise environment? Maybe they should have bet on something like Ubuntu LTS or SLES or RHEL or CentOS?
I don't know if I can fairly comment on that.
You don't have an opinion?
Honestly, I haven't. I've been so in work stuff. I've been so steeped in the RHEL ecosystem for so long that I've heard of CoreOS. Like I knew the ideas of it. I really never got to play with it and see the benefits of it in action. I get the ideas of like an AB update style mechanism, and a lot of those things are still going to continue. And it sucks that there's going to be a change, but a lot of the tool chain stuff Red Hat wasn't going to keep going with. They wanted to do things the way they do it with like Fedora build tools. So, maybe that's just, with a startup and a smaller company behind the operating system, you're just not going to get as much long-term commitment behind it. And it's just kind of a gamble.
That's what I wonder. That's kind of what I wonder. Anybody else in the Mumble Room have an opinion or want to take it?
Looks like Cubicle Nate does.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Cubicle Nate.
Wait. This is just
hold on, I'll set you up. All right, well, thank you. Now let's go to Cubicle Nate. I'd like to hear what you think, Cubicle Nate.
In all the history of software, computers, and so forth, have we ever really had any true stability? Really? So this is kind of expected in this industry entirely. I'm not an IT specialist, but dealing with the different product lifecycle management databases that I've used in my time at my employer, things just don't stay static. So there's always going to be that pain of an upgrade. There's always going to be that pain of a change of a vendor. So this is just par for the course. This is just it's just the business we live in.
Essentially comes with the territory, in other words. And I can't really disagree with that. And you could even make the argument that the platforms and areas that have remained the most stable in the terms of changes in development also come with some of the highest risk profiles. Like I'm thinking of x86 and Intel's architecture. It's been very consistent for a long time, but it's also now strapped with a legacy of baggage and vulnerabilities. Same with Windows. And so there's downsides to it as well, to not doing this change.
Yeah, that's true. And all these workloads are containerized, right? So you still have system and infrastructure configurations you need to change, but hopefully your applications can migrate a little bit easier.
No.
Absolutely, Wes. I totally agree. And I think if you look at Red Hat's strategy right now, OpenShift is their primary future kind of direction, right? And obviously RHEL 8's very important, but if you look at it from the enterprise adoption perspective of what can we start getting more people excited in, what can we start selling to people, all that kind of stuff that Red Hat unfortunately do to pay the bills, selling stuff. That's got to come from somewhere, and CoreOS Fedora is a key, or Fedora CoreOS is a key part of that. Without that kind of upstream route to feed into the CoreOS that is, Red Hat CoreOS that ships with OpenShift, where are you going to get that kind of upstream feed from? So I think it's a necessary evil. You can't really have progress without change, as Tiger Wolf says in the IRC. I think it's a necessary evil in this case.
I appreciate that perspective. And actually, hold on. I want to give other people a chance to jump in before I tell my opinion. Thank you, Alex. I appreciate that perspective. ByteBit, I wanted to give you a chance to jump in on this.
Yeah, so we have a lot of changing technologies, and also if you look at Google, they create a technology, fuse it with others, and some technologies fall away, and that kind of forces us to innovate and move forward. So it is a kind of process and progress, in my opinion.
Yeah, a good point. Thank you. All right. I don't really know. I think I feel better. It was a good conversation. And I'm sure the people that are running container Linux from CoreOS, which is there's a lot of different names now, I'm sure they'll find a path forward.
I mean, it's still a good sort of open source moment, right? Like, you're right, this can happen to proprietary software. Things always change. You don't get free support for your products, but you do get the code, and that means, right, we can continue on, lots of stuff can happen, and you can still keep running yourself.
And there's that the way we communicate about it. Like, this whole aspect of the fact that there's all of these users getting left behind gets left out of the coverage today because of the way coverage is engineered and done in this space. And as somebody who's in the space, that's the aspect of the story that I find extremely fascinating. But we move on because there's a thought-provoking post over on Tobias Bernard's GNOME blog. And he posts over there semi-frequently talking about different aspects related to the future and present of GNOME shell development. And he wrote a post calling... I'm just horrible today. And he wrote a post titled Doing Things That Scale. And it starts with an area that kind of rings really true to me, and I wanted to share it with you and kick it back and forth with Wes. He starts, there was a point in my life when I ran Arch. I had an elaborate personalized terminal prompt and my own custom icon theme. I stopped doing all of these things at various points for various different reasons. But underlying them all is a general feeling that it's taken me some time to figure out how to particularly articulate. I no longer want to invest time in things that don't scale. We will link to the full blog post because we're only going to cut through some of the highlights here. But he continues, not only is it highly wasteful for me to come up with a custom solution to every problem, but in most cases those solutions would be worse than the ones developed in collaboration with others. It also means nobody will help maintain the solutions in the long run, so I'll be stuck with extra work forever. Conversely, things that scale. A few examples that he cites is keeping things fairly simple. He says, until recently, I always set a custom monospace font in my editor and terminal when setting up a new machine. At some point, though, I realized I wouldn't have to do that if the default was just nicer, so I just opened an issue. A discussion ensued, and a better default was agreed upon, and voila, my problem was solved. So far, this really rings true for me. It resonates. It ringsonates for me, Wes. Does it ringsonate for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all... Yeah, I certainly agree that sometimes the defaults are the reason that you need to go spend some more time and customize. Now, I think you can do both in some of this, right? Like, you can go try to get a better default, but you even if the font is better, you might still prefer your own custom font. And fonts seem like the least applicable part of this. Like, yes, we should do that, but I do think the idea of if you want your tools to be better, if you can see how those could be better, that's valuable. That's worth contributing, because you can be a developer working on a project that you might not know what the users think is best.
Well, and to that point, you remember recently we did that Plasma live stream where we went through how I customized the Plasma desktop, and Jonathan Riddle and a few others from the Plasma team watched it. And they're like, we're taking some notes. These might just be some defaults we tweak for you. We didn't really think that. That's a good idea. That is, first of all, rare and incredible, but it is truly, to your point, like they're different use cases. They have different uses. They use it differently. They can't necessarily articulate in their mind all the different various ways that most people might want to use it. And so seeing different use cases and, that does make sense. It gives them an opportunity. Where things kind of go off the rails here with me is the next part of the post here. Because I think it really, for me, touches on that nerve of I push back on a few fundamental assumptions of the rest of the Linux community. And I feel like I am on an island unto myself in which I say something and people just think I'm a nutter. And number one is, I don't think Linux is for everyone. Full front. I don't think it's necessarily great for everyone to use Linux.
Right.
Not right now, not yet. Number two, and quite frankly, is I don't think what's hurting and holding Linux back is a marketing issue. It's so much bigger than that. It comes down to corporate structures. It comes down to agreements. It comes down to ecosystems. It comes down to market demand and consumer willingness to switch. It's a massive issue. And when you take it all in, when you really think about it, when you go have yourself a hike and you think about it, you realize there is a narrow niche. Thankfully and amazingly, that niche, and I've witnessed it and you've witnessed it, has expanded over the last few years.
Yeah.
Incredibly now, just at an even more accelerated rate than ever. But there's a narrow niche of people that are going to have a truly successful transition to Linux. We're joking ourselves if we think Windows 7 users are all switching to Linux. Maybe some of them, some in the engineering and scientific fields, I bet. So when I see that we should really fundamentally limit the technical capabilities of our systems so that way they're, quote, scalable and easier for average people to maintain, I kind of put my hand up and go, well, can we talk about this for a moment? Because some of these make a lot of sense, but some of them don't. Like dropping separate home partitions, dropping dot files, dropping multiple Firefox profiles, dropping encryption, dropping email backups. These kinds of things I appreciate are hard for users to manage, but I think my fundamental argument would be the niche that Linux is actually really applicable to, those are nice features to have. That user base does care about those things. Because I picture it to be software developers, engineers, geeks, hobbyists, creatives, people who tend to really care about the state of their tools because that's a tool to do a job. And I just don't agree with limiting the system to make it appealing to a fantasy user base that you can't even articulate. It's a nebulous concept. The new user to Linux is a nebulous concept that each one of us has a version of in our heads.
I think you are hitting here. I mean, there's a lot that's going unspoken. One, the definition of scale that we're using for this conversation. And you're right. I think it's easy to take this as an intent to limit. And that's where it gets really tricky because as existing Linux users, we love that configuration, right? We love the ability to automate, to interface, to customize our solutions to fit our need because it's a tool we're heavily invested in.
Yeah, how many times have you heard the mantra, it's so flexible?
Right. And I think what this article is trying to point out is that
there's too much of that.
There's too much of that. And where it's tricky is you try to get both, right? We've all had tools where you're like, I wish that there was an escape hatch in this tool because it works 80% of the time, but I need to make one little change. And the reverse is also true where you're like, I could use Handbrake or I could use FFmpeg. One, maybe I don't have all the options I want. And the other, I have to go cobble together my whole bespoke custom solution. It's hard to figure out what's in the middle of there that works for both of those use cases.
I agree, but if
I'll tell you what fits in the middle, Wes, and that's I know this is a Linux podcast, and I'm almost afraid to say it, but Mac OS. You know, that fits in the middle for a lot of people. It has a decent terminal. It can run the Adobe suite. You've heard all these arguments.
It's
before.
not Windows.
There's nothing revolutionary in what I'm saying here. It's just
this is actually no.
Done.
You're actually kind of making what my next point was going to be. Is I feel like if we go too far in this direction, we're Macifying the Linux desktop to a degree that just makes us a also brand to Mac OS.
I wouldn't necessarily object to that, but then I suppose you could argue that that's what Elementary OS is, couldn't you?
Or at least attempting to replicate some of the successful aspects of what makes the Mac work. But I think if you limit some of this, what you really are left with is idealism, people who want to use the software for moral reasons, and people who would be running their own custom desktop environments that don't have anything to do with this whole stack. But from like a market competitive analysis, say I was just watching I can't remember his name right now. Maybe somebody in the Mumble or the chat remembers, but a YouTuber just posted. Oh no, surprise! A very good video where he built a Pop! OS workstation to run DaVinci Resolve, and he compared it to a Hackintosh and Windows and the new Mac Pro, because he has one of those as well. So I actually found it right at my alley, because this is my head-to-head kind of battle. And he clearly was new to Linux, clearly new to the whole system,
right?
But figured out his way after looking at different options of getting to Pop! OS and then getting a way to convert the RPM to a deb so he could install DaVinci and get it all working. He even got the hardware proprietary dongle stuff set up, and had very positive things to say about it. Hold on, we're letting a plane pass for a second.
Well, like 6 seconds.
Still going, yeah.
Real slow.
Like a meditation moment. It's kind of nice.
So we'll come back, yeah. When we come back, Silent Drifter, why don't you just jump right in, give it still going. So hold on, let's wait. You can just jump right. What did I say last? Anybody remember?
Oh, you're in the middle of the DaVinci.
Oh, was I?
Yeah.
So, okay. I'll wrap that up, and then Silent Drifter, you jump in.
He figured everything out. He figured out
right. Waiting. Jeez, it's still going. It's probably. Do you think it's safe now? Not really.
I usually look at like what Reaper picks up when that thing's open.
Do you remember that plane show that was happening when we were trying to record a bunch of stuff?
Oh yeah. The Arlington Fly-In or something. It's actually an annual tradition. It's quite the event.
We'll have to keep that in mind for future sprints.
Be great for photos. Remember that epic photo that Alex got? That super zoom of that World War II era
with his 1,000mm lens.
That was crazy. Let's see a cell phone do that. All right, here we go in 3, 3, 2. I don't know, just after watching that, I looked at it and thought, there's a real market here for somebody who wants to build a custom system with a set amount of hardware that they need. Maybe it's disk, maybe it's GPU, and they have a budget and it's less than $35,000. It really worked for him. And he liked some of the power. Like GNOME Shell was really hitting that sweet spot for him because it wasn't too complicated, but he could tell it gave him more than what he got from the Mac.
Right, that's it. That's kind of the best case that we could hope for. And I think that's maybe some of the spirit this article is intending, that better defaults, maybe not focusing on the limiting part, but better defaults can help new users and existing users. Because sometimes I just need to test the latest Fedora out, and if GNOME looks great, that means I don't have to change anything.
Go ahead, Drifter.
Well, I was just, would you agree that it's probably never actually going to be possible to target the, quote, new users, unquote? Because, if you think about it, everyone kind of has different expectations coming into something. So whether that's someone who is fairly technologically savvy or, grandma down the street, I feel like it's really hard to define what the perfect situation is for the, quote, unquote, new user.
I could see two potential types of new users. I should probably address this. So thank you for asking, because I don't want to make it sound like I'm saying, blah, don't make Linux for new users, because we have to keep expanding that niche. We have to keep marching forward, and the only way to get there is by people working on it. It's just we don't want to sacrifice what makes it so great for the thousands and millions of people it's pulling in right now. We're about to talk about the XPS 13. Dell is very specifically targeting a developer market with that Sputnik Pro. I don't know what's the matter with my mouth.
Sputnik Pro.
Sputnik is Russian. Dell is very intentional in their targeting of the developer market with the Sputnik. And I think that's a clear strategy that's working for them. And they didn't just go for like new users. They didn't go for a Best Buy blitz. They just focused on developers with a low-key marketing campaign. And I think that's telling. And maybe you could see in 10 years, they do have something that's on a Best Buy shelf because that niche has expanded over time. So that's one type of user. Just as the niche expands, it'll pull them in. I think the other type is, and I'm sure a lot of people listening have done this, family members, friends, associates, whatever, where you set them up a Linux system and you just kind of check in on it for them from time to time. I like my son, famously, I talk about it all the time on the show. My son has been running Linux for like 5 years now, and it's no big deal at all. In fact, I very rarely he mostly just does the updates and all of that. And I've done it with family members in the past for a few years or more. And typically I'll just pick something that is reliable, and I just can do updates every 3 to 6 months when I see them. Or most distros now just say, hey, you need to do an update, and I've just told them, go ahead and do them.
It works.
And it works. And with a little bit of help, with a little bit of management, and of course, there's the corporate user where they are just given a workstation and they could be new users to it. So we still need to make it usable. I'm not advocating for not making it usable. I'm just advocating for being realistic about who we're appealing to as just a direct product.
And to be, conscious as we change, as we must, to keep some respect for the culture that we've had.
Yeah, and we have to, those that are advocating that, have to also be willing to compromise on those positions as things change.
Very true.
And I think that's something to keep in mind too. It's not a call to arms, it's a call to further conversation. How about that? Jeez, they should take that. They should just take that and run with it. So I will put a link to that YouTube video, because while we were talking, I did find it. And I just think it was super great. I had been watching this guy for a little bit because I liked his style. And then to see that video drop, I was like, wow, that's awesome. And it's so cool because he didn't even know to position it as Linuxy clickbait, because he's not a Linux guy.
Of course.
And so I didn't even really know for sure it was a Linux video. And then I'm like, oh man, he could have totally titled this differently if he knew what he was doing. like the clickbait voice that's sometimes in the back of my head.
Of course.
Anyways.
I do have a comment on this as well. I think whenever we're talking about Linux and the user space and making it easier for entry-level users, or maybe that person that's an IT professional who's always been in a Microsoft Windows environment, switching over to Linux and things like that. I think one of the things that we that we really have to consider too is that Linux is really the kernel, and then the user space below that is ours to do with what we want, right? So different distros can target that different ways. They can make, a very user-friendly, entry-level kind of user.
Like Chrome OS, for example.
Exactly. Or you can make it as deep as you want. You can, arch it up. You can Linux from scratch. You can, so there's, I don't think there's one particular, like you said, I think there's this fantasy user that they're kind of perceiving is going to move into the Linux space.
Yes.
And unlike all of these other available operating systems like Mac OS or Windows, it's not like anyone has a stand-up and says, hey, UI, UX developers,
go work on this
target
thing.
this
Yeah, right.
for Linux, right?
Yeah.
Like you have distributions that do that. Elementary's done a great job with it. Fedora's done a fantastic job with it. But that same conversation is going to be completely different if that stand-up was with the Arch developers, right? Or the Manjaro developers.
Well,
they're going to look at that completely different than the way, just the normal layman would.
I think your point's well made too, that the eventual new user product will be something that is assembled using Linux, but is not likely just a raw ISO that has been flashed to a thumb drive and then thrown on an x86 compatible or ARM compatible system. It's going to be your Chromebook. It's going to be something that's packaged up and ready to go. Or, I mean, maybe it'll be, who knows, I'd love to see this. I'd love to see just vanilla Linux systems on good hardware, especially with some of the improvements we see coming to the Ubuntu desktop. The next update makes it look very pro. We have Ubuntu 20.04 installed on the XPS 13.
Yeah,
we wanted to spend the last couple of days on the latest Ubuntu to see what it's like on this XPS 13. And one of the things that has come out of a recent get-together by the Canonical folk, like our buddies Wimpy and Popey, is a really nice new theme. So you remember Yaru, right?
Of course.
I think it's been the default since 1810.
Right.
And now it's getting a big update in 2004, and we got it installed on this XPS 13, and it's very gorgeous. I think it might be my favorite theme, specifically the purple touches. I don't know, dark theme with purple. It's one of those themes where I've set it, and I've been using Yaru even on my Arch systems now for a while. Once I set it, I'm good.
Yeah, it's really nice. Checkboxes, radio buttons, and switches all have little hints of purple. I think actually really it's eggplant.
Oh my gosh! Thanks, Wes. Thanks. I think you're right. I think, yeah. Oh, it's
aubergine.
It's Popey and Wimpy, so it's probably actually taken from the emoji. You know these guys and their emojis,
right?
You know what else is exciting about this though? Do you remember like 10 years ago, back in like Ubuntu 10.04?
I don't even remember last week
with like radiance and ambiance. Those themes. Yeah. So those had light and dark variations of the same theme, right? Way back when you could sort of customize it, have the dark version, have the light version.
I mean, I believe you.
Yeah, right. Well, that's coming back now too. So now you're going to have your dark, light, and the regular Yaru.
Oh, if it wasn't clear, we are dark mode on that XPS.
Oh, okay. I see. You just weren't even considering the other options.
I tried it this morning because Wes was playing around with it yesterday on 2004, so I grabbed it this morning to play around with it on 2004. And first thing I did was to check to see if yet they had baked something into GNOME settings, so I could just go select it there.
Good news, that's coming.
It's not there yet.
But
Yeah. You still got to use GNOME tweaks, but not a big deal. It was installed, so. Oh, you know what that means? It's time for a little housekeeping here on the old podcast skis. I already mentioned it, but I have a note to mention it again. No Linux Unplugged Live next week. We'll have an episode for you. So this episode's all about hardware. Well, it's about to be. Next episode is going to be about software. Really looking forward to it. So bring your time machine.
Yeah. And maybe this is a good time to go make sure you're subscribed in all the places you want to easily get the podcast.
linuxunplugged.com/subscribe for those. You might remember we mentioned we were doing a live stream on using the terminal like your desktop. We did
a day in the life of cheese.
And it turned out great. So it's up on YouTube now, youtube.com/Jupiter Broadcasting. You can go watch it over there. Cheese and myself just doing our thing on the live stream.
Yeah, and we got some really solid feedback too in the comments, and I would suggest anyone that's listening that ventures over there to watch the video, if you have any terminal applications that you really swear by and use every day, drop them in the comments, because there's been some really excellent suggestions in there.
I love that. That's great. Did you see that Alex was on the Home Assistant podcast?
Ooh.
Yeah, go check out Alex on the Home Assistant podcast. He did his thing over there representing the self-hosted program. One of the reasons, the reason we're not live next week is I'm taking Lady Jupes down for a major project off-grid update, doing the solar, doing the lithium, redoing the entire power system, talking a little bit about that on self-hosted. So check out selfhosted.show if you're not listening to that. And speaking
also,
of...
rumor has it that I'm going to be going on the show again in a couple of weeks to do like a deep dive into my setup, even deeper than we do in self-hosted.
Even more Home Assistant.
You celebrity.
Watch out for that.
Nice. Good for you. And speaking of great content you can catch, our man Brent sits down with Mr. Jim Salter of the TechSnap program and Ars Technica. He was on our show here recently in the latest episode of Brunch with Brent over on extras.show. I love brunch. I want chats with Chris, dinner with Drew, and we need something for you, Wes. Something about drinks with Wes? No, that's not it. Wine with Wes?
Oh, there we go. That'll work. There you
go. And then a special programming note, everybody. Texas Linux Fest has extended their call for papers until this Sunday, my birthday, January 26th at 5 p.m. their time, which is Central Time. So you got a couple more days. Remember, you don't have to have the perfect fully done talk. You just need a great pitch, a good summary, and an idea of where you're going to take it, and then you use now until the fest to make it just right.
Yeah. And as long as you get it finished by the fest, no one will know.
We're going to be there. Are you going to be there? I can't remember. You coming?
Yeah, of course.
Oh my gosh, great. And Alex is going to be there, and Brent's going to be there, and Cheesy. I'm sure L, of course. Carl's going to be there, of course.
Yes, sir.
Oh.
And it's going to be in Austin again this year, so barbecue what?
Yes. Carl, we've got to make that happen because Hidea has been giving me 2 years of crap for not taking
The marriage is on the line.
It's important. So
It'll be across the street.
Is it in the venue across the road from Terry Black's? Did that happen?
Yes, sir.
We're going to be smelling it from the fest. You know that because they pump all that.
Right.
Oh my gosh, you guys. So there you have it. Texas Linux Fest Call for Papers extended until this here Sunday as we record. So go check that out. And then Linux Fest, Scale, and Texas Linux Fest all coming up. Scale first, right?
Yep.
Then Linux Fest, then Texas Linux Fest. Right now, we're planning to go to all of them if we can. So we hope to see you there. Who knows? Will plans change? I don't know. I don't got a magic 8-ball. All right.
You lost the magic 8-ball? Come on, I trusted you.
I let my kids play with it. They asked all kinds of questions, mostly about farts. So, Wes, do we have the hardware in here?
Yeah, we did. It's actually at your feet.
Oh, yeah, there it is. So we're talking about the XPS 13 7390. This is no longer the absolute latest. Although I don't, can you order the brand new one that was announced at CES?
I don't know if it's shipping. You can order it. It's on Dell's website. I'm not sure when you'll actually receive it.
So we wondered, is there still a point to this laptop, number one? And number two, where has the XPS line gotten to? Because something that is extremely important to me when I'm investing in a hardware platform is I really like to have insurance that that platform will get better over time. And that, say, after I've used a laptop for 3 or 4 years, I can buy another one of that same generation, and it's iteratively gotten better.
Right. It's no fun having to jump brands each time you need a new laptop.
I mean, we saw how upset the Mac users got when the MacBook suffered there for a few years. And they've really only gotten one good one.
That's right.
Let's be clear. There's only one that's got a fixed keyboard, for heck's sake. Anyways, I really think you can say that is true for the XPS 13 line.
Yeah, we've both been using them over the years, and there hasn't been a huge regression.
You and I both have been and are XPS owners. Not our daily drivers, but still really great. My wife uses an XPS 13 as her main computer. She loves the portability of it. Great screen. That's always been true. So where are they at now? And where's it at performance-wise? Well, like we mentioned, we recently launched this. We came with, I believe, 1804. And we messed around with a couple of different distributions. We finally just put Ubuntu 2004 on here for fun. But something kind of hit me right in the face when I first started playing around with this thing, as I had some trouble booting other Linux distributions on there. It's this newfangled hardware, Wes. What exactly was going on with that?
Well, there was fast boot enabled. Basically, the default BIOS settings made it very difficult to get a USB drive recognized. You kind of, first of all, it's only USB-C ports.
The default BIOS, you say?
Yeah, that's right. No, it's UEFI now, Chris.
UEFI? Is that a worm?
So you're going to live the dongle lifestyle, right? So you got your little USB-C to USB-A adapter. You plugged in your Linux distribution. You're hoping it's going to boot, and you just get Ubuntu again.
Yeah, you get kind of weird stuff, actually, depending on the distribution. In Elementary, I got the Elementary OS splash screen, and it started booting Elementary OS, and then when the splash screen disappeared, I was in an Ubuntu desktop. It was the strangest thing. And then when I booted Manjaro on it, I had really kind of strange mouse glitchy issues.
Oh.
But all of that kind of I just attributed to the thing being so dang new. But after you solved it, it was really kind of no big deal at all.
I spent most of my time with it running Arch, and it was performing great.
I love that you put Arch on it. You're such a maniac. So like we said, this is now no longer the most latest and greatest edition. They have one that has been just announced at CES. So we called up Dell and we said, hey guys, what's the difference between this here laptop and the new one? What's the big difference? And Damon from Dell obliged.
The big difference is the focus on the 9300. So first off, it is a completely redesigned machine, even though they look very similar side by side. And again, that is because the design tenets have not changed radically. But the materials and the technology that we've got have let us continue making it smaller, right? And you can only eke so much out. But in this one, we do, have managed to get it a little bit smaller, and maximize the screen. So we're maximizing the things that matter: the screen, the keyboard, the touchpad, right? So the touchpad's bigger. The keyboard, if you look at it from the two models, the keyboard now goes edge to edge.
Yeah. And of course, the screen is probably the biggest point of difference between the one we have in studio and the one announced at CES.
The display, we've gone from a FHD and UHD, which is, your 1920 by 1080 and your 3840 by 2160. We've moved up to the 16 by 10 aspect ratio instead of the 16 by 9. So you get that extra vertical space. And the way we did that is by almost eliminating the bottom bezel.
There we go. A little bit larger screen ratio, a little bit nicer keyboard to body ratio.
And those
tweaking
sound
the
like
display.
small changes, but to give credit what he said, that to make those kind of changes on a laptop that's already this small with such a nice screen, that's a lot of work.
Yeah. But we had this one in-house since before Christmas, and Wes and I traded it back and forth. Wes got to spend quite a bit of time on it, and then we decided to just put it in studio and run benchmarks on it. And I'll tell you, if you're thinking about a laptop like this, here's a couple of things that I really like about this. Number one is it's all USB-C now. Even the power, we've all gone USB-C. And because I kind of just over the last couple of years have been making the transition to getting a dongle for this or changing from an HDMI cable to a USB-C cable, just kind of making these changes, pretty easy to just slot this in now to my existing workflow.
Right. Once you've got USB-C docks hanging around, then okay, not a big deal.
The keyboard remains pretty good. It's not my absolute favorite keyboard.
No, I mean, I'm using the ThinkPad most of the time, so it wasn't quite as nice as that, but it's so much more portable. It kind of makes up for it.
And unlike our ThinkPads, this has a nice backlight keyboard too.
Backlight keyboard and that screen.
Yeah, okay. So the screen is really great. Even on ours, the non-CES edition, the screen is really great. And so this is what I wanted to say, is I think this laptop now that they have released the CES edition is sitting in a very sweet spot for those of you who are okay having something that's just about as good as the latest and greatest edition. And if your workload is disk, I/O heavy, or CPU heavy, or those two things together, you would be very impressed with what this laptop can do. Again, we'll have comparison benchmarks that linked in the show notes. You can run the exact same benchmark on your hardware and see how it compares to this laptop. But in short, this thing was benchmarking at ranges of high-end Ryzen desktops with high-speed disks. Like it's really crunching numbers in the CPU as fast as possible, really lighten up the cores, and it can suck data on and off of that disk.
Yeah, we did some tests doing a whole bunch of video encoding, and it performed very admirably. Sure, the fan does kick on, but it doesn't get crazy hot because it actually has very good thermals.
So I couldn't tell you, well, it needs more performance. I couldn't say to you the screen isn't good enough. The trackpad, I think, is the best trackpad you can get on a computer pre-built with Linux. The build it's like all the previous XPSs. It's very good. The question is, can you actually buy it now that the new version's been released? And could you maybe get it at a slight discount? Maybe you want to do a little budget shopping. Well, I asked Damon just that.
So I'm glad you asked that because interestingly enough, a lot of times you'll see manufacturers, they'll discontinue a model after they bring in the new one. And they're going to actually let the older generation model live on for a while next to this one. I think is an experiment to see how, folks feel about the changes that we made and whatnot. But so you'll be able to go to Dell.com and you'll be able to click on XPS 13 and it'll give you an option, XPS 13, 7390, or it'll say new XPS 13, and that'll be the 9300. So they will live on side by side. Right now, I think both of them are starting at $999, but things do go on sale from time to time.
That, I think, is the hint there. And depending on how you price them, the prices will change. But I think if you watch for a sale, the version we have here in studio, the 7300 version, will be very competitively priced soon.
Last time I looked, there was $100 off going on right now over at Dell.com.
Oh, really? Already, huh?
Mileage may vary, but yeah, it's definitely worth looking at.
Yeah, because I could see them keeping this around and doing special discounts, Black Friday sales, all those kinds of things. Because there's just a scale of economies just since they've been building this for so long and they have the newer version now. And there's really nothing I could ask. Would I like a slightly wider screen? Sure. The other thing that's pretty great is the new edition has been changed to 16:10. This is a 16:9 ratio. But again, I don't know if it's really necessary. So I thought, well, where is this going? Because in talking with them, it's clear that Dell is feeling pretty good about the success of the Sputnik program. I think it started as this crazy idea of let's just ask them what they want from a computer, and then let's take our best rig that we sell and give them that. Which was a weird concept.
Right. It didn't start with like a netbook line, something cheap and easy.
Which is what everybody else was doing.
The XPS
and they had taken
the Premier.
They had actually taken a crack, I don't know if you remember, like at a really cheap laptop.
Oh, right.
That was from a different area of the company. And this was a risk because it involved spending a lot of time ahead upstreaming drivers. Before they even shipped a product, they had to pay developers to start upstreaming, right? And work with their partners to do licensing and like this.
Wait, how do we Linux again?
Yeah. So it was considered sort of Barton going out on the edge with this idea and using a fund that had been established in the company for crazy ideas to just seed this thing. Now you fast forward and it appears this has been looked at as one of the more innovative successes inside the company in a while. Like that's where we're at now. Like we could be seeing big things coming from this.
And right. I mean, with a big corporation like that, if it's not going to perform well for the company, at some point they're going to exit. And it's been going on for a long time.
And I think we as a community need to recognize not only the importance of that, but how great it is that we have a really rich hardware ecosystem where each of them have their advantages. There's clear advantages from each vendor right now. And so you have to wonder, where are things going in the future? Who's going to take the risk on the next big thing, like an ARM laptop or maybe an all Ryzen system? I know a lot of people listening are asking, did he ask them if they're going to do Ryzen? Well, I did. And it sounds like maybe it's not outside the realm of possibility.
You know, I think if you just look at the product lines, Dell already carries AMD product lines, AMD components in our product lines. There's no reason why in the future, if that makes sense and we hear that feedback from our customers, why we couldn't incorporate something like that if it makes sense in the bigger picture, right? ARM, I'm not really the right person to comment on that. You know, I can tell you that we are always looking at the technologies that are out there because we don't ever want to look out there and just say, oh, well, this is off the table because we just, you know, we're always looking at the technologies, seeing where they're going, where are the pros, where are the cons, strengths, weaknesses, and does it make sense for our customers? Is it a good strategic move?
So, sounds like if enough people ask over time, they could go that direction. And that'd be pretty neat to see something like that XPS 13, but all Ryzen would really be cool.
I would love to play with that.
And Ryzen's getting, you know, more and more applicable for something that size. So, Wes, I want to give you a chance to talk about it a little bit since you spent a considerable amount of time with the laptop.
Yeah, I pretty much use it as my day-to-day work machine for at least a week, I would say.
Yeah, and then plus all of the horrible torturing. I just basically say to Wes, like, let's run these benchmarks, and then Wes really has to do all of the setting it up.
And I was impressed. I mean, we had like net data going. I actually set up data going into a Prometheus cluster so we could watch as it was encoding, and
it's pretty geeky.
It was pretty geeky. And
yeah.
I was impressed. Now, there's a couple of things. Dell still hasn't fixed the EFI on their XPS line. It's not like it's terribly broken.
You say?
Yeah, but if you want to do fancy stuff, like you can boot the kernel with what's known as EFI stub, where due to some clever hackery on the kernel's part, you can make the kernel act like an EFI executable. So you can just boot the kernel, no bootloader, nothing. But you obviously have to give it some commands, right? Like tell it where the init ramfs is and the root and all that. EFI supports all of this. Unfortunately, Dell's EFI does not pass those variables. The upside is I discovered a neat little project, which is an alternative. Maybe you don't want Grub and you don't even want systemd.
I don't. Nope.
Super minimal. It's just a little C program. All you need is like the GNU EFI development libraries, and you just build yourself a custom bootloader to just boot your kernel. Nothing else. That's all it does.
That's pretty slick.
Yeah, so if you're interested in that kind of booting hackery, we'll have links to that.
I actually kind of appreciate you mentioning that kind of feature specifically for this class of workstation. It's meant for developers that are building things you might need to boot into another OS. I mean, ideally, I should think Dell would love the idea that mainstream open source and free software developers, large, maybe Linus or Greg KH, would be using one of their devices.
Right?
But supporting things like that are kind of necessary.
Right, it's the kind of details that market is going to find in your product.
But again, if this is what we're getting down to in terms of our criticism, it's also a measure of how good they're doing.
Right, so the flip side is once I got that working, boy, this thing boots fast too. It's just performant all around.
Yeah. I can't stress how fast that thing can get bits off the disk and shove it into the CPU. It's so glorious. It's amazing.
Now, the other issue I ran into, I mean, out of the box, it was working great, but as we mentioned, even if this isn't the newest laptop, it's still pretty darn new, and it's actually got a Wi-Fi 6 chipset inside of it.
Yeah, tell me about that.
Now, it has already been upstreamed, but if you're not running one of those distributions that gives you a nice new modern kernel, you're going to run into some problems and probably won't have Wi-Fi out of the box, like if you install, say, like an older elementary OS.
How was it under Arch?
Oh, yeah, Arch worked just fine.
And did you have to do anything with 2004?
2004 worked right out of the box.
Yeah.
And thankfully, it is Intel Wi-Fi, so there's actually driver firmware you can go download and add to your system, even if you don't have the newest kernel.
You know, and if I now I'm thinking through this, when we did the 2004 install, we opted to use ZFS. So we're talking about how fast this dang thing is with using ZFS on it too. Just as a note, it doesn't seem to have impacted our perception of the performance.
No, not at all.
Huh. Or really the benchmarks. I mean, we did those benchmarks all using ZFS for this last round.
Yeah,
it screamed.
Pleased to report too that in our early 2004 testing, the ZFS option is still performing great.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. My only kind of criticisms that I really have for this thing is the fan noise is a little significant.
Once it's up, if it's really doing work, you're going to hear it.
And the kind of workloads that I would throw at it would push the noise levels that I am comfortable with because I work on mic a lot. And so it is an issue in that regard. And so if you're sensitive to noise, it's not it's not a white noise. It's a little bit of a harsher kind of a pink noise.
You can definitely tell those fans are getting aggressive.
Yeah, but it's also, you trade for that. You get something that's so thin you don't even notice it in your bag. What was so great about it is both Wes and I could just slip this in our bag that's already full of stuff, and it was no big deal.
Right. It would also be perfect. Maybe you have an existing work laptop and you also want to bring your personal to keep that separate.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And I think if you remember, they're targeting the developer where that workload is often, it's bursty in terms of CPU, maybe you're building, but otherwise it's terminal or it's your IDE in a browser. And in those conditions, like when my famous, like just sort of sitting there working mode that I did is YouTube video, then I pop that out into picture-in-picture, and I use the browser, I'm using the terminal, I'm doing stuff, but nothing massive chatting, looking things up, putting together a doc.
Active multitasking, trying to get stuff done.
In that scenario, you don't even have to hear it. I mean, it's not. I mean, we're talking like when you're really pushing with that multi-core
That I think
CPU
is the thing to know is that the curve settings, it's quiet almost all the time, and then it gets really loud.
And as you would expect, but it's just one of those things that I'll also mention is in that I saw battery life ranges from 5 hours if you're not pushing it very hard to 3 hours if you're pushing it pretty hard. And remember that thing's got a very bright screen too, so you can back that down a little bit, and that'll also vary your mileage.
I think if you do some tuning, you'll probably see 7 or 8 hours if you're not doing too much with it. But you're right, there are some trade-offs for the portability.
We both really like holding it too, which is a weird thing. But we both, I think, really enjoy the feel in the hand where they've put the bumps on the bottom. Like it makes it easier to hold on to, so it doesn't slip out. It's got some traction.
It's just a pleasant machine to interface with.
Yeah. If you are in this area of considering a MacBook Air class machine or a MacBook 13, that range of device, or a really nice high-end thin ThinkPad, I would definitely add the XPS to your line if that's your category. The thing about this XPS 13 is it packs more of a punch than you expect in that small packaging.
Yeah, I think the only complaint I still have, including with the new model, is that 16 gigs of RAM.
Yeah. Yeah, it needs more RAM. It needs a lot more RAM, but they're using a very special low power everything in that thing, so I can understand that. But it's pretty great. We didn't play around much with the battery testing, so there's probably others that will give you more details on that because we use it. First, a lot of times our processes use it as a work machine, then
Right.
Run it through all of its paces as much as possible. And then something we try to do in all of our reviews is post at least one comparable benchmark so you can see where it would fall in your range, see if it's worth the money for you. And then the other thing we try to do if we have time, and thankfully Dell was very generous with our time on this one, is we try to throw a couple of different distros on there, because I like to do that. If I buy a piece of hardware, I want to know that I can run more than just what ships on there.
I think that's what's so funny about this. We're really celebrating the fact that you can just buy this Linux laptop and it comes with Linux.
Yes.
But all of us want to go customize it.
Isn't that the thing, though? It's because, well, for one, I like to explore. Two, I want to vote with my wallet, and I want to show that I'm buying a Linux machine.
Absolutely.
And to me, if it's running a mainstream distro, what it says is it runs a mainstream kernel likely. And so even if when it's brand new, it's got some patches, the great thing about these Dells is they're upstreaming that stuff. So you give it a little bit of time and it's just in the mainline kernel.
I love that.
And it's pretty nice. So it's a pretty good machine if you're in the market. And we should put some links to it in the show notes. That would be good. And thanks to Damon for for letting us call him up and ask him questions. I can say stopping by, but you could probably tell we called him on the phone. We do that every now and then. We call them so you don't have to, right?
That's right.
Now, before we get out of here, we have another Unplugged to record, but this is nearly the end for the download audience. We have a pick, and this one's pretty cool. It's called Glow. And I actually don't remember which one of us found Glow, because I don't think it was me.
I was going to say it was you, but maybe it was Cheese.
Cheesy, did you find Glow?
Maybe.
I love it. I love it. The thing is,
I'm definitely going to use it.
We've been pick shopping. We spent the holiday, a lot of us, making like lists of our favorite picks and stuff. And so we've all got like ones that we're just throwing in the mix right now. This is a really nice looking way to render Markdown on the command line. It must have been from Cheese's video. It's super easy to install. You just brew install Glow. Anybody?
Get out of here, Mac guy. Actually, no, there's Brew for Linux now, too. It's fine. It's fine.
I know. But I was just trying to trigger you. I just was seeing if you were listening. Of course, there's other package managers that have it, too.
Yeah, it looks like there's binaries for Windows, Linux, and FreeBSD.
Yeah, it's in the AUR, too, by the way, Arch. Anyways, it's just really nice because we often will be talking about these massive Electron applications. Well, instead, you can do it all on the command line. It might all be NPM on the back end, but at least it's on the command line. That doesn't matter, right? Web apps on the command line don't matter. What you do is you run this in Hyperterm or whatever it is, that Windows terminal that's based on Electron, then you're really set.
You got to make sure you keep Electron around.
So we'll have a link to Glow, which does look really nice. I kid around, but it actually looks really fantastic. And
I love that their description is renderer Markdown on the CLI with pizzazz. And pizzazz is in italics.
Which made me think of pizza. We should do a Linux.
I said it with jazz hands.
Nice.
Pizzazz.
Huh. I want a Linux powered pizza oven. That's what I want.
I want to do a Linux Unplugged pizza party like we did that barbecue. I also want to do barbecue though, so
it could be barbecue pizza, my friend.
You're reading my mind, Wes. You're reading my mind.
All right, well, go over to linuxunplugged.com/337 for links to everything we talked about today, as well as linuxunplugged.com/contact if you want to correct us, or more importantly, share a pick or an insight or something you've been thinking about.
We love hearing from you.
And last but not least, go get more Wes Payne over at techsnap.systems and get daily, weekday news, linuxheadlines.show. Every weekday in 3 minutes or less. We'll see you back here next Tuesday!
You know who you are. If you're somebody who doesn't want to mess with it, I just want to surf.
It's for people who like to mess with computers.
It almost sounds threatening. And you know who you are.
Does it?
Leo, don't come
it's
for me.
People who like to mess with computers. And you know who you are. If you're somebody who doesn't want to mess with it, I just want to surf. Just want to buy something on Amazon, send an email to my kids, look at some websites.
Your kids don't want an email.
You don't want to mess with it. Probably not a good choice.
That's not what I was saying today in the episode. Just want to make it clear. That's not what I was saying. Don't.
Ooh.
All right, let's go pick a title over there. jbtitles.com.
It makes me think, in the U.S. we've got this whole impeachment thing, but it's always very popular to go find the clips of the politician from like 10 years ago saying the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
Makes me think we could find some last clips of you that might be pretty entertaining.
Oh, no kidding. That's where some of this comes from, is reflection on I was one of the loudest mouthpieces for advocating everyone use Linux. And I mean, you remember the Switch competition?
Right.
That not only was that manifested in the podcast, but it came out in my career. I made a consulting career out of going in and converting people's Windows installs to Linux in the last part of my IT career. And sometimes looking back at it, I think in most cases for file and print and basics, I was always right. But I never even really considered Windows.
Right, to stop and think of like, is this really what I should be doing?
And then if I had to use Windows, it'd be in a VM. And now I've gone from a like diehard, what would you call that, evangelist, to, I don't know if advocate's the right word, but now I'm much more of this is a tool that works really well for me, and I think works really well for a lot of uses. But if there's a tool that works really well for you, that's fine.
It seems like it's kind of the stage of any sort of relationship, right? You fell in love with Linux at first. It rescued you from the depths of Windows. So it's natural to be infatuated with it.
Yes.
But now it's another tool in your tool belt, and you can think about it a little more critically.
Yeah, initially it was solving really significant problems for me. And it was doing it for free, and I was blown away. And it was I can. This is something I can even do. And now it's transitioned to, well, I can understand why using Photoshop's important for you, or I can appreciate that you like the Mac better. That's fine. I think this is great. I think part of it too has been my distro hopping and my desktop environment hopping, where I get really into something for a bit, and then I move to something else. I'm like, well, this is great. And then I realized, no, it's all kind of great, and whatever I want to use is fine.
Right. It doesn't have to be the only solution for everybody. There's a lot of good options.
Yeah. And I think the other aspect to it that we sort of failed to appreciate in 2020 is it doesn't really need the same kind of evangelizing. We won in terms of market penetration in server and mobile, and as a default way for most software development that happens at scale. Like, that's just now a given. That wasn't a given in the late 90s and the early 2000s.
Right.
Especially after Microsoft survived the antitrust trial. It was like, oh, crap.
They're still here?
Yeah. I mean, that's where I think a lot of the anger towards Microsoft came from, is it was a competition for how software was going to be developed for the next decade and beyond. 20 years now, right? 20 years.
Right.
This is when we were dealing with Y2K. I mean, put this in context. This is when we were...
Wow.
This was the time, and in that time, things were not so great. There was no Linux in everyone's pocket. There was no every router running Linux. There was no cloud. There was other people's computers, and they ran everything from Unix to NT to Linux.
I mean, we'd had the whole Unix Wars era,
Yes.
and Windows. And
SCO.
Oof.
There was a lot that just was uncertain. And so it felt necessary to evangelize Linux in a very direct way. Now here we are, where most people's information's in a cloud provider that they're getting access to through a web browser. We have Electron, we have Snaps and Flatpaks. You have just about every vendor doing their best to appeal to every type of user, with Microsoft with the subsystem, and with Apple's new Pro hardware, and with the various different Linux distribution attempts and Dell Sputnik program. It's like there's so many options that all can do the job now. So it's kind of like whatever works for you, I can't really pass judgment on anymore. I just, who the hell am I? I just know what works for me. I know what works for our group. And beyond that, I'm good.
Have at it.
Whatever you want to use. And so I think that's where I look at this and go, don't make my tool that I use for my job less powerful. Don't take sudo away. I mean, imagine. I mean, you laugh, but they're talking about no home partitions. Like, that's better. No drive encryption. That's better. Like, oh, yeah, for average users. But that user doesn't actually exist, where this user base is here and expanding at a very rapid clip.
Right. And it'd be interesting to have some more examples, because I think home partitions are a good solution to, or are a solution to, a lot of things. But probably at least a subset of those solutions could be better handled or more approachably, scalably handled in other ways, right? So with encryption,
It's a technology problem, not a human problem. The software could be managing the encryption and managing the partitioning, and the user could be blissfully unaware of it. Or, maybe in modern parlance, they should be subvolumes or whatever.
Right. But I think disk encryption is that example, right? Because 5 years ago, you had to go learn a whole bunch about LUKS and do it all yourself and customize it to get it at all. And these days, it's just a checkbox when you install Fedora.
Yeah, it's just baked into the installer. But it's cool too how hardware has seemed to, we've gotten to the point now where we're even talking about Dell and Linux together in the same sentence with them releasing hardware that's running Linux out of the box. I can remember, right around that same time, maybe 2002, purchasing a Dell workstation, and it came with Windows. And I asked them, I called them and got on the phone with their tech support and asked them if there was any way they could issue a refund for Windows because I wouldn't be running Windows on this computer, and they would not. They would not. They absolutely would not issue a refund.
That's not support. That's not a supported configuration, sir.
Yeah.
All right, I'll stop, gentlemen. I'll stop. Let's get these flax over to old Joe. Old Joe on the range. Wes, make you do things.
That's fine.
So what we're gonna do here now is we're gonna do the next one. Oh crap! Does anybody remember the incantation? Or we got to get a title too. It's like LUP bonus or something like that. Anyways,
LUP 2?
Don't worry about it right now. We'll get to that. We'll get to that. We will cross that bridge.
Use an old show.
I apologize, Chris. I had a power outage and my UPS was screaming at me.
Oh man! Wow.
And it was right when you were. I heard you say my name,
Sorry,
but
it happens. Joe will fix it.
Okay.
Power's back now, or are you on battery?
Yes. Power's back now, so
Good.
But yeah, I didn't even realize that my power had gone out because the UPS, just turns on. But it only goes for like 20 minutes before everything shuts down.
Yeah, that's because you got all that
still
stuff.
have internet connection?
I was impressed how fast you got back on too, Jill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Problem resolved.
Yes.
System's back online.
Are you in the Northeast?
No, Los Angeles.
Oh, okay, not because they had that brain-numbingly high snow over there.
Yeah.
Ooh. I'm glad all our snow's gone.
Yeah, there's no excuse over here.
Yeah,
It's
Chris, you guys had snowpocalypse up there last week, and I've got it this week. I'm in the Northeast.
Yeah, our snowpocalypse, like our winters, lasted for like a grand total of, our summers lasted for like a grand total of 3 days. Although I shouldn't talk so cocky about it because we could actually very easily get another round of it in the next couple of weeks.
Don't anger the snow gods.
February is usually February and March. Sometimes in this area, I'm like done with it by then. So come on, let up. And then all of a sudden,
I'm
April,
ready for the 3 months of a slightly different type of rain.
Yeah, exactly. But then April comes along, and within just a matter of 3 weeks, everything changes. Just in time for Linux Fest. It's one of the reasons why it's so great. It's not peak bloom, but it's like when everything's like just growing right back. So it's just a great time. It's a great time to be here.
Yeah, here my windows froze on my car. It was melting and then froze again. So I couldn't get it off for about 10 minutes.
Oh. Whew. Boy.
But no snow here. No snow.
You all just kind of make me giggle. That's all.
I know. What, you don't have a snowpocalypse? You just have every day?
This is just the normal. It's just the normal.
Well, you don't have like Newfoundland snow.
Yeah, that is.
They had almost 3 feet of it.
Wow. That just shuts down society.
They did, yeah, because they showed a picture of the main street in whatever town, and there's cars parked all down the street, and they were all completely buried. It was nuts.
That is nuts.
Hard pass.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I actually, for me, what we get here, I could stand for just a touch more. But the thing is, it's so unpredictable here. When we were hit hardest wasn't when they said we would get hit hardest, so I was caught unprepared. And the day they said we would get hardest was the day the snow melted the most. So
Well, and you're a little more susceptible to it being in the RV, right? Like your water freezes up.
Yeah,
like
and
you can't use.
And I didn't know
Have you
this.
heard of like static buildings where they just sort of?
Yeah, I know, right? Actually, thankfully, we have pretty good odds that the barn blocks the majority of the wind. But the thing is the wind's often coming in from the ocean, and the way Skagit County is it's just sort of a perfect bowl for the wind to come in. So it blasts over Port Angeles, and they take the massive brunt of it. So if it's they might take like a 60 mile per hour wind, and by the time it gets to the junkyard, it's like 35, 40 miles per hour, which is still very significant and enough every now and then that it can shake the RV if it hits us just right. Thankfully,
I did forget to mention in LUP that there's also a companion article on the Linux Unplugged blog. I did link it in the show doc. So.
That's what I wanted to plug. Damn it.
But we good.
Oh, that's right.
There's too much going on.
In the show notes.
This what happens. There's too much going on, and Chris just gets dumb.
All right, I got your Linux Unplugged bonus answer, and this is why we can never remember it, because it's not LUP-B or LUP2, or it's LUB.
LUB. All right.
LUB.
We got to pick a title for this one first.
Yeah, we do.
Kind of like delicious hardware.
Cheesy. That's cheesy.
It's in his name.
That's why I like it.
More bacon, less cheese.
Who burped?
Levi?
Jesus.
Levi's officially overweight. 5 pounds.
How did he get like that?
It's his mom, She just constantly spoiling him.
I feel like...
Is Linux for everyone? ?
I feel like we love that dog so much that when we're experiencing something really tasty, we want him to experience it too, and it has led to him getting too much food. Anyways, should we title it? Do we get one?
And then we should more suggestions.
Oh man! And then I'm going to take a lady break. Maximizing things that matter, core expectations, rising with Dell, call for conversation, mythical users. Oh,
that got a vote.
I like mythical users. That's pretty good, Colonel.
Unicorn users.
Oh, I like that. That almost borderline. That was a borderline Trump impression. Oh, I like that. Almost.
Almost.
That's me doing an impression of what's his face on SNL.
Yeah, you're doing the Alec Baldwin doing Trump.
Yes, that's what it is.
Yeah.
But it was pretty good.
I can't see you right now, but I feel like your hands are up. I feel like your hands are up doing the motion too.
So if we can raise $100 in the next hour, I'll never do that again. That'd be great. Then we'll just donate it to a charity.
Darn, there's no ATM here in the studio.
I've got only euros here. Oh.
Bitcoin's accepted. All right, we got to pick a title. Smaller, smaller, smaller. Although the screen's larger, so the smaller, smaller, larger? No.
Yeah, the screen specs on that, man, just sounds
That's
freaking
the
great.
thing. That's the
I did
thing.
want to ask.
What'd you want to ask?
Whenever you set it up, did you enable the fractional scaling in Ubuntu? Or did you just go with the scaling?
Not on
that
this
was
one,
available?
because on this one, the straight scaling is like perfect because it's not like a.
Oh, okay.
But I on that new one, you might, I suppose. Oh yeah, popping that neck to the song.
Was the we did have a question.
Old
I think
man
Computer Kid
dances.
asked it. Was the RAM soldered on, and was the Wi-Fi card soldered or socketed?
I don't think it's
Do we know?
technically user serviceable, but I haven't opened the bottom of it, so I don't know for sure. Don't know for sure because I kind of don't know if I should open it since I'm about to just send it back. I kind of like mythical users, but it's got really no boats. The hell's going on with that? Come on, we got to start the next one. 2 shows. Just
go with mythical users, bro.
Wes, you didn't
just
oh,
do it.
Jeez, Wes, you didn't have to change your outfit for the second episode. They can't even see us.
Oh, yeah, we don't do video.
There's Rising with Dell there. It might be better as Dell on the Rise.
Like
But that's if they do
RYZE?
Ryzen.
Yeah. But they didn't
It was a pretty
explicitly say they were
non-answer,
doing
though.
resin.
Like, I feel like that'd be better if he'd given us, like, a yes, we have one in the works.
Yeah.
I tossed one in about Cheese asking if Windows could be deleted.
What do you mean?
Deleted.
Can you install Windows on it? Is that your
As
question?
in, could you delete Windows, please?
Oh. See what you did there.
Because there was a sentence of Cheese, so...
I would have been so happy had they given me like $100 credit.
Not like
but
a
that's the
$100
thing.
demerit.
You would be paying $100, but they're having an license, so they're paying cents for it.
And that's
So
probably
giving
why
you
they
100?
didn't. That's probably
Yeah.
why they didn't, you know.
It cost them more to take it off than it cost them to put it on.
Who's ready for a second show, huh?
I need to stretch.
More
I think.
love. Yeah, get stretching. Come on. I should do
I need
that
some
too.
more water.
Maybe dance around a little bit. Keep the energy up.
So on the Linux for Everyone thing, I've been working with a company that I've had my daily driver as Linux for many years now. And they hired me because I knew Linux stuff. But now the conversation has happened is, do we want to standardize on Windows? Because new people that we've hired are more comfortable on Windows.
Group
So
dynamics
I've been
make it a little more difficult.
I've been thinking recently about, okay, well, where is the line for me?
Are you sure they don't want to standardize on Chrome OS?
Probably.
Isn't that what everyone uses for their cheap laptop nowadays anyway?
They did move everything to GCP, so
Yeah.
Is that the right doc? Was it not 337?
It was.
That was 337.
That's just the old one from last week.
338's in there.
Yeah, all right, good. I was just worried I gave out the wrong number at the end of the episode. So let's go with that guy. And then I think we should transition. You guys want to transite?
Transitions.
Transitate.
Why don't we so what was it there, Wes? It was start _show lupb.
Nope. Lub.
Let me get some more water. I'll be right back.
All right, very good. Yeah, I think we should get beverages. We got to write up a description and tag still. We got a few housekeeping items. So we'll take like a $5, and I'm going to play a video. So we'll take like a $5, maybe an $8, and then we'll be back and we'll do another episode. This one's going to be very kind of nostalgic and fun, a deep dive into history. So to kind of keep things on point, on theme, I guess, or whatever, I'm going to make the video clip kind of a deep dive retro too. So that way we just get all kind of nostalged up. So get your nostalgias on. This here is from 1987. So we'll be back after we get our waters and we do our descriptions and our other items. All right? Thanks. See you soon. I love you.
Yeah. Mama. Better act again later. Let's play.
The hottest thing in toys these days are dolls and bears that talk and listen. And the newest thing in PCs may be computers that talk and listen. Will the speech chips move from the toy stores to the computer stores? We'll find out today as we take a look at speech synthesis and voice recognition on today's edition of the Computer Chronicles.
The Computer Chronicles is made possible by Leading Edge, makers of IBM-compatible computer systems, including word processing with spelling correction, communication software, and Hayes-compatible modems. Leading Edge, with over 1,000 service centers nationwide. Leading Edge, leading the way to the information age. Additional funding is provided by McGraw-Hill, publishers of Byte. Byte's detailed technical articles on new hardware, software, and languages cover developments in computer technology worldwide.
Welcome to the Computer Chronicles. I'm Stuart Chaffee, and with me this week is George Morrow. George, if I want to communicate with this computer, I have to use one of these devices, a keyboard, which most people use, or perhaps a mouse, a joystick, a touch tablet, a trackball, or what some people think is the most intuitive thing, a touch screen, where I can avoid any of these devices and just touch the actual computer display. But when I communicate with you, what do? I talk. That's the most natural thing, but I can't talk to this computer.
That's true, Stuart, but talking is probably the least precise way of communicating. When you talk to this screen, you've got a grid, and you've got to get your finger on the right place in that grid, or it doesn't mean what it ought to mean. When I talk to you, I don't have to finish a sentence. I can get halfway through it with dangling participles, wave my hand, and you know exactly what I mean. But these machines don't have the processing capability to process and understand those things like we do.
George, today we're going to take a look at the latest developments in speech synthesis and voice recognition technology, and we're going to begin with an overview of the current state of the art in using the spoken word for computer input and output.
We're playing.
For all those computer users who never learned to type, who disdain keyboards, or who just want a faster way to enter data, voice input and output are becoming realistic alternatives. Kurzweil Applied Intelligence Corporation has a voice-activated system that stores up to 1,000 words. Dr. Alan Robbins, a Boston radiologist, has adapted the Kurzweil system to dictate, edit, and print diagnostic X-ray reports. The system is customized to his voice, after which it can be trained to recognize the verbal equivalents of keyboard macros. A short phrase will trigger a more complete entry in the patient's file. IBM is developing a speech recognizer for office applications, based on a statistical model of 25 million words. The AT Speech Recognizer evaluates verbal entries by comparing them to candidate words stored in the model.
The previous version of this system was implemented on a collection of computers filling a large room, period.
The other half of computer voice technology is synthetic speech.
The Robertson Greeting Card Company. The address is
Call Text from Speech Plus is a text-to-voice simulator that turns ASCII input into speech. GTE of California and Michigan Bell have embraced the idea for rapid database retrieval, when clarity is more important than the subtleties of intonation.
Joining us in the studio now is Charlie Cochran, Vice President for Marketing at Electronic Speech Systems. George?
Charlie, Wrinkles here is one of these talking animals like we've just seen, and it has your stuff in it, I understand. I hope it's not tape recorders.
Oh, no, that's not. That's a talking Wrinkles toy from one of the large toy manufacturers, Coleco to be exact. In that particular toy, there is a microprocessor-based system that does about 1,000 phrases out of that system with tools in it. And it's basically the circuit you're seeing here on the printed circuit board next to me.
But this is a single chip Intel. You're telling me this is all software then?
Well, as you notice, there's no speech synthesis chip in there, and so basically we put software in the ROM here, and it actually manufactures speech using the microprocessor.
All time domain stuff?
All time domain and all at low bit rates. Very efficient use of memory.
Roughly how many bits per, I mean, what's my storage requirements on this stuff, Charlie?
About 600 bytes per word.
I see.
And so you can figure what that would be as far as data storage. It's very efficient.
Could we see some of it?
Sure.
Here, let's get Wrinkles away.
Get rid of Wrinkles. Go to the computer.
Okay, what I'm going to do is record a short message, and you're going to see it digitized on the screen and see the waveform. Boy, it's been a great week for me. I didn't see it.
There it is.
There it is, by golly, it's there. Let me play it.
Boy, it's been a great week for me.
Okay, now that's uncompressed or compressed?
That is digitized speech. We strictly have digitized it, and now I'm going to take that data and I'm going to compress it down to about 5,000 bits per second from about 100,000 bits per second. All right, it compressed it down to around 4,000 bits per second. I'll play the original speech.
Boy, it's been a great week for me.
I'll play the compressed speech.
Boy, it's been a great week for me.
Yeah, there's some difference, but it's not bad.
That's correct.
Now, suppose I'm not particularly happy with it. Is there anything I can do?
Yeah, if you'll see here, this particular product is such that you can edit that particular waveform and make it sound very nice. And here's some of the things you can do. There's a list of commands by which you can change these things and do a lot of different things to the speech waveform. And you can, as you can see, I can mark pitch periods, voiced versus unvoiced, and several things can be done to this to edit and make it sound as natural as you like.
Charlie, besides talking dogs now, what are the serious applications of the technology?
All right. Well, some of the things you're seeing in the market now are voice warning systems in aircraft. You're seeing entertainment products, talking slot machines, arcade machines, and what have you. In the space shuttle, there's a lot of reminder systems that are verbal when people have a lot of data at their fingertips and so forth.
At the storage rates they're talking about, this is a very efficient output device.
And in a computer, for instance, like an Apple II GS, for instance, with the sound system they have, our particular voice could help people to learn foreign languages and things to hear it pronounced correctly. With low bit rates, you wouldn't use much of the memory of a floppy disk.
Do you see any particular business applications? I mean, using any software that would talk back to you?
One of the things we're working on with some of the larger companies is voice messaging. And in a computer, where if I wanted to talk to you and you wanted to hear my message in my voice, we can talk into this computer, compress real time. You would get the message back out of the computer, remanufactured at my voice, so you'll understand that. And there are a lot of people interested in doing that right now.
So you can create new messages from information you've already got.
Yes.
That's great.
We just had a little bit of time left. I think you have a pre-recorded, Humphrey Bogart or John F. Kennedy in here to show us how you clean up compressed speech?
That's right. At low bit rates like the 5,000 bits per second, here's what you can get if you like.
I always knew microprocessors could be put to a better use, kid.
And what's the degree of compression on that?
That's at 4,000 bits per second.
Okay, thank you very much, Charlie. In just a minute, we're going to take a look at an application where you can use synthesized speech to access your computer from a remote location, so stay with us. With us in the studio now is Michael O'Malley, president of Berkeley Speech Technologies. George.
Mike, we've seen digitized speech. You've got an example of synthesized speech, don't you?
Yes, this is a system that lets you get information over the telephone and read information that's in your computer that's actually stored as ASCII text.
And comes out as synthesized
speech. Comes out as synthesized, or we say computer speech in general. And for example, one kind of information you want to get very often is names and addresses, and we could start off with trying to get your names.
Okay.
Oh, and there it is.
So, for example, suppose that we wanted to find Stuart Chaffee's name, so we type in Stuart, Cheifet, and it says
Stuart Chaffet.
Well, probably a lot of people call you Stuart Chaffet, but you might not like that, so we can then add your name to our dictionary by typing in.
And teach it how to pronounce it properly.
Teach it how to pronounce it properly.
So you're going to use phonemes to do that, right?
Yes. So Cheifet is an sh, f, a, with a stress on the A. Now if I type in
Stuart Chaffet,
it says your name correctly. George has a name that's more, I guess, Scottish, and it works probably pretty well with just the rules by itself.
Should.
George Morrow.
Fine.
Okay, now show us how you would access a personal computer through a touch-tone phone and get a phone number or an address or something.
Okay, so we're running our program, and the idea here is that you're maybe in an airport or you're in your car with a cellular telephone, and you can't remember the name and address of the guy you're going to see. So you call up using a payphone with any touch-tone type telephone, and you type in, using the touch tones, the person's name, or as much of the name as you can remember. Now let's say that we wanted to find Stuart's address, and I can remember don't remember how to spell his last name, but his first name I can remember Stuart. Maybe I can remember that he's a producer, executive producer, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, something like that.
Okay, so show us.
So we simulate a ring.
Okay.
Hello, this is the Berkeley Speech Technologies remote phone book.
And this is recorded speech.
This is recorded speech. We
Enter
think it's very
your query
important to
now,
combine them.
followed by the pound sign.
All right.
So now I type in, let's say Stuart. So S-T-E-W.
And you're typing in those letters off the touch tone
typing them in
phone.
on the touch tone key.
and the software is making sense out of numbers to letters.
Executive Producer, WITF-TV. Post Office Box 2954, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, 17105. Phone number 717-236-6000.
Oh, the future. It's going to be amazing. If the damn Echo would stop interrupting me. Yeah.
Now I kind of want to send Stu some letters.
Sorry, I had to drop in the housekeeping.
What's that? What about housekeeping?
Drop in the housekeeping of the last episode. You didn't even notice, did you?
Not yet. I don't know if I even opened that doc yet. I don't think I have. We've been struggling with the description. Struggle is real.
As in, I wasn't here for a bit. I am now here.
Hello, Alex.
You sounded just like that.
Well,
I sounded like a robot.
Are we all ready to have a good time?
I remember when my dad paid like $500 for a copy of was it Dragon speech recognition software?
Oh yeah, that was a big deal.
Oh.
I remember Via Voice in like 1998.
Via Voice.
We had to sit and train that thing on Christmas Day, I remember.
Yeah. Yeah, the old training
Sounds
process.
like a great Christmas Day.
Nerd. So I don't know how to start this pre-show. Like, part of me wants to just go hard into it, but then part of me wants to set it up. So
I mean, it's a cool freaking project.
Oh, don't say anymore, girl. That's what that's what I sound like. That's director.
I gotta watch the video.
Hold on. You might want to wait because we can watch it with us because we're gonna watch it on the old stream skis.
Okay.
If you can. All right.
Ooh, that price tag, boy.
What is it?
Ooh, that price tag, though.
What is it?
I'll wait. Let us get through it.
I know they're just giving out. Don't worry, Brent. That was a public safe address for Stuart.
Sure.
That was his studio address.
That's how it all starts.
That's pretty good, Wes.
You give out your studio
Should have a capital M
unencrypted
for
an unencrypted files file to GitHub.
Hey everyone, we are live from my backyard.
Smoking them mates.
Well, guys. Oh, another one? No, I just did a shit. What's that?
It's actually two more. That's not true.
I just did a podcast. Hold on. Where's my agent? I thought my contract said no more than one show a day. I am a precious commodity, and you cannot
Didn't you write the contract?
Huh?
Didn't you write the contract or agree to it?
No, I had my daughter Abby take care of it.
She's great at that kind of thing.
Yeah. She's got really good handwriting. Much better than mine.
Instagram for Windows 95.
What?
Yeah.
That sounds like a pick. Let's make it a pick.
Looks great.
All right, well. Do you have any reason why we should not proceed, Wes?
No, I guess. I mean, are we?
I know. I just don't feel ready. It's weird.
Is there something we can do to sort of get our energy up?
We do need like a. A
ritual.
Slap pipe.
A ritual. We need a ritual.
A cheese
Slap
tune,
pipe.
perhaps?
Rochambeau.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pass.
You can't pass on.
Go and get my
Rochambeau.
trombone out if you want. Play that.
Yes, please do.
Hey, come on, guys. No. Shame on you.
Shame on you.
Remember him?
Oh, no.
Oh, is that a real thing?
If there's a need for a rescue mission, when the world is threatened, when the world needs help, it calls on America.
And that's the story.
You know what we could do, Wes, to make me feel better is we could check highlights. I don't have any on this one. I do have some on this one. Now I'm feeling
that
like...
clip needed a screaming eagle.
You're right. Sorry.
All right, so number one, our raspberry. All right, so which ones?
Mother of God, Wes. Mother of God. What's going on with this thing, Wes? What's going on? Why has it got all these pop-ups? Okay, let's share it with you. What's your beef?
Okay. So which one didn't you have?
I got none on this one. Nope, this one.
Okay, I've got some for the first one.
Do you have some for the second one?
No.
I don't want to talk about this one. Oh my God, I swear I have deleted that from the doc. It's right there at the top, too.
Yeah. Here, I'm deleting it right now.
I swear I deleted that twice today.
The register one?
Yeah. That's really weird.
It's following you.
I was like, initially, like, going to put it in, but then I was like, I've got nothing to fucking say about this. I'm going to take it out.
No.
Well, I don't have this one.
Don't you lie to me about it, Wes. I mean...
I've refreshed so many times.
Okay, all right. I mean, sometimes you say you've refreshed, but then, okay, no, you're right.
Yeah, I've practiced, looks like I'm hitting Control R, but I haven't.
All right, I shared it with you.
Hey, Brent,
you
I
were
just
right.
put a link in the IRC. Did you see that routers running Tomato are undergoing a big bot attack today?
I just can't.
Don't
can't be kidding me.
Stop. No,
I don't like
no,
this. I don't want this.
But I don't have a
Tomato.
router, actually. I've got one of those newfangled routers.
Oh.
See, a router's a thing that you put over wood that spins a bit really fast and makes a nice groove.
But doesn't it route?
Yeah, my
into
internet's
wood?
really grooving.
Yeah.
It routes.
It routes
funny.
into the wood, right?
Yes.
It
It creates
routes
a
the
route
wood.
into the wood. So
Yes.
why is it called a router?
It's not.
What do you?
The
I don't even know
wooden
what
one
you're-
is called a router.
This shit is
And
so
then
like
the thing that
complicated.
routes internet
Roo
packets
sound like
is
rooster.
a router.
ROO? How does it?
No, it's spelled the same.
Yeah, that's why your suggestion's wrong. Why make this more complicated? This is America, damn it.
Because the word root is pronounced root, not route.
What I really mean, Alex, is thank you. That's a great thing. I thank you for sharing this.
There was one clip in that little extras that we did, Brent, where you're like, some people say router and tomato. It's just so funny.
Bom, 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 bom. All right, get your recorders ready, gentlemen.
All right.
Dun, 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 dun. We need a little background.
Little background.
Yeah.
There we go. You guys ready?
I'm ready. I'm a snake.
Sounds like a Bob's Burgers intro.
Is that Wes?
It does.
Okay.
Sprinklers in the yard.
3, 2,
Chicken shit
1, record. All right.
Oh, Chasey. Oh, Chasey.
Hi,
I'm here for the snake jazz.
I'm here for
The
this.
second episode is always a little more Rudy.
That was Snake Jazz. I knew I recognized it.
Yeah, you know that's Morty. You know that's Morty right there.
Oh.
All right, let's do our silence in 3, 2, now.
So I went for this walk actually, and I found this.
Is this happening right now? Is this happening for real?
Brent.
What? I don't need to record silence. You guys are supposed to.
All right. Okay, here we go. 3, 2.
Sorry.
All right, that should be good, right? Should be good.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Play Snake Jazz.
Okay, so I gotta put the gates back on before I get too silly.
We could just leave that playing for the whole episode.
Dude, I could jam to that. I could jam to that. Y'all ready for this?
I think ready is a strong word.
I'm ready for this.
Did we do a count? Yeah.
What? Oh no, we didn't. You're right. Thank you. Okay, y'all jump in at 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Four.
Nice. Thank you.
Slow count.
What? I did do a little slow,
You
didn't
feeling ponderous over there?
I am feeling ponderous. All right, here we go. It's time to talk about a new Linux running product. In 3, 2.
Just like a real cat, Mars Cat is fully autonomous, stretching, tapping, and even burying litter. It may express different emotions by different meows or gestures. Mars Cat can play with you or your toys.
Or your children. So Mars Cat is a Raspberry Pi 3 powered robot cat that looks about as clunky as a 1950s sci-fi robot.
I will say, though, it has one advantage. Real cats aren't fully autonomous. They have the whole litter box situation, which Mars Cat doesn't have.
But did you hear there? It likes to play in the litter box. It does like to play in the litter box. This thing is actually, it's really worth watching the video. I'm going to play it for the live stream because it's like some sort of dystopian future. Because the cat, even with these generous marketing shots, isn't smooth. It's not a smooth moving animal like cats are. It's very, very blocky and clunky. And listen to this with sort of that kind of mindset.
Because it can feel, hear,
Mars, go sleep.
and see. It can interact with objects or people nearby, even play with real cats. It heals with purr sounds. Every Mars Cat is unique, from its eyes, body to personality. You can pet it and shape its characters in your own way. Dress it up, make it more adorable. Mars Cat is open sourced and programmable. With powerful quad-core Raspberry Pi, you can create your own applications.
There you go. It's open source too. Isn't that the magical world of Linux? And in the video, they have a MacBook running Ubuntu and the cat has been taken apart in a way that looks just as disgusting as if you took an actual cat apart.
Yeah,
They managed to make it just as creepy as.
You're bringing back bad high school biology memories over here.
This is really something else. Brent, are you down for one of these? Think about it. You don't have to worry and feel guilty when you're traveling.
And it has a USB-C port.
Oh my god. How do I know if my current cats are running this or not? Is there a way of checking?
Oh, you'll know because Mars Cat looks like a robot that's going to kill you in your sleep. So whereas your current cats probably sleep at night.
It's still going to kill you in your sleep.
Well, that's true. Actually, that's the thing about cats, isn't it? We all know it. Hello, friends, and welcome into the Unplugged program. My name is Chris.
My name is Wes.
Hello, Wes. You've got that very special edition look going. You dressed up all nice.
Oh, yes, to the nines.
I don't know why you have to dress up like that, but I appreciate it. And it makes me feel like it's a very special episode.
It's all for you.
Today, we're going to bridge the gap between shareware and free software. Those of us who have been around for a piece remember a time when you bought software in bags on walls. And it was the full version of the program, but it often came with certain limitations. How did we get from that to open source and free software ruling the world? We're going to talk about that today, as well as some news, some discussions, and of course, we've got Alex and Cheesy here. Hello, gentlemen. I think I missed you, but you probably said hello, I'm assuming. You probably I don't think they did.
I definitely said hello.
I know, but I had them
definitely
muted.
said hello.
I had them muted just for a second because I do that, but then I didn't unmute it because sometimes I do that.
Whoopsie.
Well, say hello again. They're not rational.
Fuck off. No, I'm just kidding.
I want that on the soundboard, please.
You had your chance and you blew it.
And as always, we have our virtual lug, a fantastic showing. Hello, Mumble Room. Time appropriate greetings.
Hello.
Hello.
Happy Linux Tuesday.
Hello.
Hola.
Happy Linux Tuesday. Thank you all for making it here. We have a lot. I think we're going to have a really fun discussion, a lot to get into today. So let's start with some good news, not robot cat news, but good news for Kubuntu users who might be interested in a laptop that comes pre-bundled with what they're calling Kubuntu Focus. Michael Larble over at Phoronix had a chance to give it a look, and he says, I've been testing it out for several weeks. So he got it like under a embargo.
Oh, look at him go.
An old NDA skis, as they say in the biz. This is the first generation of the Kubuntu Focus laptop. You ready for the hardware specs, Wes?
Please.
You got any guesses?
Well, I'm guessing I'll probably be a little disappointed.
I thought it was, I mean, when I first heard the initial rumors, I thought it was going to be an ARM box.
Right.
Like,
yeah, something small, minimal.
This sucker has an Intel Core i7 9750 processor, an NVIDIA GeForce RTX 2060.
Wait, what?
It's got a 16.1-inch 1080p screen that runs at 144 hertz. It's IPS, too. It's got a terabyte Samsung Evo drive in it. And then all the other kind of niceties that a Clevo laptop of this size has, which have been getting pretty competitive.
Do I also see it's got 32 gigs of RAM?
That's right.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm interested.
Yeah. I mean, you know, as far as a laptop of this nature, a high-end laptop, if you're a Plasma user, Larble seems to be pretty impressed. He says the software side's looking choice.
Yeah, that's right. Kubuntu 18.04.3 is shipped on the device with some alterations around the default desktop environment and themes. You get a little bit of customization there, including the dark theme by default. Chris, you'll like that.
Well, now I'm sold.
You have that NVIDIA GPU too, so Google Chrome is included and already tweaked with all the GPU options for maximum acceleration.
Also of note, it ships with disk encryption turned on by default. So if you're listening to this and you're wondering, what's Kubuntu Focus? We'll have a link to it in the show notes. You can also just go to kfocus.org. It's the result of the collaboration between the Kubuntu Council and Tuxedo working to create something that they felt was pretty well focused on the user.
This. We maintain the platform so our customers can focus on work and play.
Yeah. I mean, you could really see it. There's not a very wide selection of pre-built hardware shipping with Plasma. I'm really struggling to think of anything almost all of them that you could buy that's System 76 or Dell or somebody else would be generally GNOME Shell.
Right.
Not all of them, I guess, not 100%, but a lot of them. Some of, you get like the Mint hardware and stuff like that. That's probably Cinnamon. And there's a couple others, but
yeah, you're right. Plasma's been somewhat underrepresented, and it's nice to see what seems like a great offering now.
Okay, can I admit what feels like an insecurity to you guys? And I think it might be.
That's what we have this virtual users group for, Chris. You can be honest, share your feelings.
All right. Hi, my name is Chris, and I'm afraid that the Windows terminal is getting extremely competitive. And the worst thing about it is Microsoft is incorporating legit nice features that have been contributed by outside community members into their core product. So it's like they freaking get it too, and that's really the most frustrating.
Using open source to compete against us.
Oh! They got it. They figured it out. Maybe that's why they love it so much.
That was our secret.
I am talking about, of course, they have now added those cool CRT retro effects that you get from like Cool Retro Term into the Windows terminal itself, which was a contributing. The community member was called, I love his handle, Irony Man, not Iron Man, but Irony Man. Contributed the CRT retro effects to this, and now it's shipping as an experimental feature. There's other really kind of cool things in here too, some things you might like.
Yeah, they've got some nice updates to usability, things like you can now modify your profiles.json to have your own default profile settings. And once you set that property, you can have it applied to like all your profiles.
So if you always want the font, a certain font or a certain size, you can set some defaults across all profiles. That sounds really nice, and it sounds like the direct kind of feature you add when you've been listening to the users of that terminal.
Yeah, stuff too, like some improvements to how tab sizing works. It's getting pretty slick.
This is the reason why I wanted to pull this story, because it's an interesting. There's an interesting connection here from a company that was really ignoring its terminal for.
Right, we spent
many
years
releases.
ragging on old command.exe.
Yeah, and then they really focused in on it, and it really has exploded.
I think your insecurities are somewhat right, though, too. I mean, it helps them that they've got this open source, but even already on the Mac desktop,
yeah,
they've got competitors too. I think we need to step up our game.
Yeah, I saw that. So you read in my mind is what I was thinking. Is like, imagine if one of the distros really got it in its head, like, what I'm going to do is I'm really going to invest in the terminal. I'm going to make the terminal really great. I know most people are listening are probably thinking to themselves, the terminal's fine. There's nothing really wrong with it. But I don't know, man. I think I think with the WSL2 stuff and terminal and all of that, I think it's very likely that more and more power users are getting at least a little bit what they want. At least they can stay on the Windows platform. And I guess good enough for them.
Right.
Maybe I shouldn't be. Maybe it's fine. Maybe it's fine.
It is hard to say, and I don't like thinking that a beautiful, well-functioning open source terminal somehow makes the world worse.
Now, Wes, I want to.
One thing that really struggles, I always struggle with on a Windows terminal, whether it's PuTTY or whether it's the built-in one, is copy and paste. It's just really difficult for some reason.
Yeah, my favorite thing about using the terminal on Linux is that X clipboard when you just highlight something and then you just middle click to paste it.
Yeah.
Soon as I'm on any other terminal system and I go to highlight it, and I'm like, oh yeah, right.
It just changes. Like you think you already have it. You've copied it.
So quick. It's so fast. Now, Wes, I want to go to our reporter on the ground in elementary OS land. Minimech, are you there? And can you give us an elementary? Or hold on, let me redo that. It's not elementary. It's enlightenment. Jeez, I talk about it so sparingly. One more time.
Yeah.
Well, hold on. I'll give you an appropriate setup. Let me do it right. I'll do it right. Hold on. I'll do it right. Now, Wes, let's transition to our reporter on the ground in Enlightenment Island. Minimech, do you have an E17 perspective on this particular situation? Over, and tell us what you're learning now.
Hoo-ha. So enlightenment, we started with terminology, which is a future terminal, which is really cool because you can watch a video while doing some commands on your command line and everything, and all that in your terminal. So it's quite an interesting terminal, and it is available in Ubuntu, I think.
Okay. And, of course, a cool retro term. I like what Node Runner said in the chat room, though. The future is the GUI. But have you tried the terminal? That's exactly it. Nailed it. That is so exactly it. The future is a great GUI where I run a really nice terminal. All right. So last week, we've talked about some community transitions that were happening around container Linux. And there was also a recent story about a pretty big upset within the Rust community around the ActiveX project. I want to say ActiveX, but the ActiveX project. And that developer, who is actually a Microsoft employee, experienced significant burnout and quit the project, pulled the repos off. Now, this is actually a pretty significant project for the Rust community, so it made headlines pretty quickly. How would you describe its relevancy? It's probably one of the few or it's the largest that does what it does in the community.
Right, so it's sort of a whole framework for web services, interactive HTTP sorts of servers.
It's kind of the biggest one.
It was at least one of the earlier and most well-known in the community. Yeah. And the number of projects that had used it, the sort of community that had developed around it, led you to think it was, it was maybe there was a team behind it, it was well-maintained or endorsed by the community. Turns out mostly just, one hard-working maintainer.
Yeah, and we covered this story, the whole cycle happened during the week of Linux Headlines. And I'm happy to say there is a resolution, which is also covered in Linux Headlines at linuxheadlines.show. But the really quick summary is he got overwhelmed and felt probably a little taken advantage of and was sick and tired of justifying well-thought-out design decisions over and over again. Like the same stuff would get noticed and thrown at him. And he just reached a point of, I'm done with open source and I'm pulling the repo. And then people panicked because of the value of this project.
Right. Well, and I think there was another side of that too, is that, it started as a personal project and it grew. And so you could say, there were design decisions, and I think a lot of the community had some rising standards, or at least standards that they wanted to implement. And that takes a lot more work, or maybe just a different style of management than a single maintainer can provide.
Though, after some time, the developer had a think and came back and said, here's what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand the reins over to another community member. And so now the repositories are back online and a transition is taking place and it's all amicable. And it's really nice to see that. But it's a reminder of a constant problem. And I really feel for these developers because they start something in some cases that they don't plan to monetize or they don't plan to turn it into a business or a foundation. It's really scratching their own itch.
Scratching an itch, trying to learn or just help the community.
And in this case, this individual just nailed the timing because interest in Rust was growing and there was interest in having these types of services. And so it just took off like wildfire, and he ended up running a fairly large project.
Right.
Pretty common story. And it's something that we have a hard time fully appreciating because we don't do the work. I have definitely, as I've gotten to be an old fat fart, is...
Wizened.
Oh, thank you. I really didn't understand how much work went into all these different career trajectories. And when you think you know like what a plumber's job is, or an electrician's job, or a media person's job, or a software developer's job, you just can kind of only really appreciate what you were able to observe from afar.
Right. You get the surface level and none of the hard work that goes on underneath.
And there was a blog post by Drew DeVault that it was like, I wrote this, only it could be all about content creation, and he's talking about software. And so I think this is a universal human problem. And he posted this last week as this episode goes out, and I think this is so worth a read. So I want to encourage you to go to Drew's entire blog to read the entire thing. But he just recently crossed a major milestone.
February will mark 1 year that I've been working on self-directed free software projects full-time. I was planning on writing an optimistic retrospective article around this time, but given the current mood of the ecosystem, I think it would be better to be realistic. In this stage of my career, I now feel at once happier, busier, more fulfilled, more engaged, more stressed, and more depressed than I have at any other point in my life.
Yeah. Isn't that a weird mix? It's boy, can I really...
It's the hobby turned profession.
Yep.
There's a lot of emotions there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he speaks to that more. I also have mixed feelings about how busy I am. Every day I wake up to 100 new emails, delete half of them, and spend 3 to 4 hours working on the rest. Patches, questions, support inquiries, monitoring, and reports. It's endless. On top of that, I have dozens of things I already need to work on. The CI work distribution algorithm needs to be completely redone. I need to provision new hardware. Oh yeah, and the hardware that I need ran into shipping issues again. I need to improve monitoring. I need to plan for FOSDEM. I need to finish the Wayland book. I need to figure out the memory issues in Himitsu, not to mention write the rest of the software. I need to file taxes, which is twice as much work when you own a business. I need to implement data export and account deletion. I need to finish the web-driven patch review UI. I need to finish writing docs for Alpine. I have to work more on the Pine phone. I have a legacy server which needs to be overhauled and is now on the clock because of Acme V1. That's a lot of stuff.
Yeah. And that's not even all of these. Like, that's what's off the top of my head. He says, not to mention the tasks which have been on hold for longer than they've been planned for in the first place. Alpine is still going to have hundreds of Python 2 packages by the end of life. RISC-V work has been stalled because the work is currently blocked by a large problem that I simply can't automate. There's another project he's committed to called FOSPay, which is having issues pulling data figures from Patreon, and he has to restart a process manually every so often to get it to work. And there's dozens of other loose ends. And he says that's not even considering any personal goals. And I think anybody that's kind of been in this situation has been here. It's like you just get so focused on work. He says, which I have vanishing little time for. I get zero exercise, and though my diet is mostly reasonable, the majority of it is delivery.
Right.
Unless I get the odd 2 hours to visit the grocery store. That is, unless I want to spend those 2 hours with my friends, or in my case, family and wife, which means it's back to delivery.
My dating life is almost non-existent. I want to spend more time studying Japanese, but it's either that or keeping up with my leisure reading. Lofty goals of also studying Chinese or Arabic are but dust in the wind. And to make matters worse, I'm addicted to caffeine again.
There have been healthy ways and unhealthy ways of dealing with the occasional feelings of being overwhelmed by all of this. The healthier ways have included taking walks, reading my books, and spending a few minutes with my cat, doing chores, and calling my family to catch up.
Less healthy ways have included walking to the corner store to buy unhealthy comfort foods, oh yeah, consuming alcohol or marijuana too much or too often, getting in stupid internet arguments, being mean to my friends and colleagues, and Googling myself to read negative comments.
Ooh, yeah. He says, I've been trying to do that my entire life, trying to get all of this balanced. Writing code for someone else has always been a huge drain on my emotional well-being. That's why I worked on my side projects in the first place, to have an outlet through which I could work on self-directed projects without making compromise for some arbitrary deadline. I recently had that realization that I should do a personal side podcast just so I have a pure creative outlet so I can stick to what works here, like the topics, and do, if I want to talk about RVs or whatever it might be, I need to have an outlet for that, but I don't need to put it into a Linux show
or shoehorn it in.
So, and the idea of taking as long as I want to make content, because I've been doing weekly content for so long, I could really kind of connect with this. He says, when I'm in the zone writing lots of code for a project I'm interested in, knowing it's going to have a meaningful impact on my users, knowing that it's being written under my terms, is the most rewarding work I've ever done. This isn't a retrospective I wanted to write, but it's nice to drop the veneer for a few minutes and share an honest take on what it's like. This year has been nothing like what I expected it to be. It's both terrible and wonderful, and very busy. And I have a bit of advice for Drew via podcast here. Just for a moment, the rest of you can skip ahead. But my advice directly to Drew is, and to be clear, this isn't our Drew. This is software developer Drew. Our Drew DeVore, is not. This is Drew DeVault, which now realizing sounds a lot like Drew.
I actually made
Drew's
that mistake.
also very busy, so I'm sure he sympathizes with this too.
Is not our Drew. This is software developer Drew, full-time software developer Drew.
Sway maintainer, and many other cool projects.
Yes, we've talked about him before on the show, so I kind of went in with a little bit of assumption. But my advice to him, and really anybody who finds themselves in these positions actually, is try not to get in the, oh my God, I'm so busy mentality, because it's a way of thinking, and it's a way to immediately say, no, I can't do that, I'm too busy. I can't do that, I'm too busy. Nah, what's the point of running out for 15 minutes? I'm too busy. And it's a cycle you can get in that amplifies your feelings about not being appreciated for the software you're creating, or people not understanding your rationale. Like, those all get amplified by this I'm too busy to deal with this crap mentality, and you've got to break it, and you've got to just say, right now is quite busy, but there will be time. And you have to just shift your mentality and try to say yes to a few things. And I know that sounds hard when you're really busy, but it is a tricky mindset you can get locked into, and it's very counterproductive. So, and I think it leads to burnout.
Right. It's always hard to prioritize long-term over short-term, but
yeah, for sure.
You have to make time.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I'm like some expert at it.
Could I give you a little bit of my take on this one?
Yeah.
I was feeling quite overwhelmed when I lived in England and working in London. Living in a big city like that, I've actually found it quite oppressive. And I was going to an office every day, so I had an excuse to get out the house. And so one of the big things, obviously, as some of these listeners will know, is that I obviously emigrated last year to the US. And one of the primary drivers for that was quality of life. And it was me being honest with myself and sort of saying, and looking at my life as it was and saying, am I happy with how this is going? And would I be willing to try and change some things to try and improve it? And then I got this job with Red Hat where I'm working from home the whole time, as in, if I want to never leave the house, I could literally never leave my front door ever again. So I've kind of swapped one set of problems for another set of problems, which is kind of great, because I don't miss a commute, I'll be perfectly honest. I miss the kind of disconnection between the office and home, that 20, 30 minutes or sometimes 2 hours.
Right, clear separation of where you're doing work.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, I don't miss a commute, genuinely I don't, but there are some days where you think it would be nice to take 20 or 30 minutes. And a great example of this is before we recorded the last self-hosted episode, I went and said to Chris, look, I just need to take a 20, 30-minute walk to clear my head and just get some air, because I actually hadn't left the house that day. And it was like, 4:30 p.m. at that point?
Yeah.
So
I did that
there's
recently.
A bunch of stuff you've got to be cognizant of.
I did that recently, and I should do it more often, because I have found I have a huge resistance to doing it. But if I go and then come back, not only do I feel like kind of good for actually have gotten it done, and that kind of gives me like a bit of a boost, but I tend to have a bit of a temperament or mind shift on a topic. And when I got back, I really cranked out a lot of work, which felt really awesome too. So then it was sort of like a double whammy. And so it kind of felt like it was worth the time, and it was nice to get a break in the rain. Brent, you said you were just kind of struggling with this stuff earlier this morning.
Yeah, I mean, I've been working as a solo photographer now, I guess solo photographer / podcaster for basically ever. And Alex, you sort of expressed this as well, but being in your own little office in your house, or a lot of people feel this at work too. You feel kind of isolated somehow. And so I find myself just really empathizing with everything you read there, because most of those thoughts that he expressed, I was thinking just this morning, like, oh, geez, I can't do the 20 minutes of yoga that my body is craving, that I know helps me throughout the day, because I feel like I have too many things that I need to get done, and those 20 minutes feel really precious. Right. But I think sometimes I remind myself that, like you were saying, Chris, it's a bit of a trap, because by taking those 20 minutes, to go for a walk or to eat a healthy meal or something like that, your future minutes are actually spent far better. And when you're just overloaded with work, I think it's easy to forget that kind of stuff. But there's
think about it like painting a wall, Brent. Like, the prep's the worst part, but once you actually get there and you do it properly, take the extra time to prepare for the day properly,
It's a really good point, and I think something we need to remember every single day. But I even hit with, the topic of social life, and because it feels like often, we feel as though we have some quasi social interaction through our computers via the internet and stuff like that, but it's just not the same.
Slow
and it doesn't
bandwidth.
give us the same. Yeah, there's not the same like human connection that is life-giving.
Our factual evolved brains like, oh, this is good. I'm chatting with people. I'm very social. But there's this lower level part of you.
I think we also need to remember, too, to accept that, when working in open source or others are in day-to-day life, that, like, you got to let other people make time for their own health and well-being if you're going to keep interacting with them.
I think there's room for developers to have a better set of expectations for their users, to be able to set expectations. And I think there's room for users, a lot of room for users to adjust their expectations of open source projects. And a lot of people blame GitHub and the GitHub model for this, but I actually think you could use that same argument and say people could be spending the time to look into who's contributing to this project, do the frickin' math, and realize it's one developer and set their expectations accordingly.
Once you start using it, say, like, this is important to me. How do I make sure that this project is healthy and maintainable?
Yeah,
the
really.
other thing I feel is important is collaboration. It feels like, when two people are working on a project, it's far better than two isolated people working on a project. Like, the throughput is more than twice the times, right? And someone can cover the other person while they're taking some downtime and that kind of thing. So I think really healthy collaboration is often not given the right kind of praise.
Well, remind me, let's pick this back up in the post show, because I think we all probably have more thoughts on this. And this is probably, we could expand this conversation a bit. But I think we should get back on the main track here, because we have a lot to get to. But I think this is a very important conversation, and we can pick it back up here in a little bit. And it's one that keeps cropping up every few months.
I don't think this will be the last episode we talk
about.
Boy,
we could go through and make so many examples. Ugh. But it's good to see in the case of Rust that a resolution is there. Things are moving forward. People are talking. There, I think, was some learning happened. So, in this case, and I think I really want to commend Drew DeVault for posting that. Very honest.
He took the time out of all those other tasks to write this retrospective blog post and share some of his private, personal feelings, and that takes a lot.
And I think that's the exact kind of thing that can help us have a better connection with these developers, help us empathize a little bit more with their position. So I think that actually him being vulnerable like that, I think really kind of see, look at that. It's an episode of vulnerability. Vulnerability helps everybody. Every now and then a little vulnerability is good. Oh, is it that time? That's right. It's time for housekeeping. A few things to mention today. I want to plug the outrageously awesome Telegram group that we have raging now at jupiterbroadcasting.com/Telegram. Having a really fun conversation in there this morning about Project Off-Grid, which is something I'm working on, and a few other things. Sometimes we make a few jokes. People like to give me a hard time every now and then. Popey pops in there, teases me, that kind of stuff. So that's at jupiterbroadcasting.com/Telegram. A lot of the crew hangs in there. So, we're hanging.
Yeah, come chat with us.
Chilling. It's like the JB water cooler, only instead of a water cooler, it's like a town water tower. Because it's really kind of the population of like a small town, like a small
all
Eastern
crammed
Russia.
in there.
Yeah.
And they've got a lot to say.
And then we just got,
sprinkle a little Linux on top.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A few bots to keep the order. And it's all good. So that's at jupiterbroadcasting.com/Telegram. Do we have anything else for the housekeeping? go check out self-hosted.show, where I give a major project off-grid update, probably in the next episode by the time this is coming out. I don't know. Time math is hard because we're recording ahead, so I don't know how it works. Time is just a construct, man. Yeah. I'm not going to get held down by it. New media. Right? All right, so how did we get to free software from shareware? Those of us that remember the term shareware remember an era of software that you would download and maybe use it for a certain amount of time, and then you get a pop-up, or maybe you could do certain kinds of functions. There's a lot of different types of shareware.
Headware, crippleware, trialware, donationware, negware.
You know what's funny is this is a topic that is literally about as old as I am. And it goes back to an early era of the industry that was still figuring out how to even distribute software. Pre-internet, pre-CD-ROM, so you didn't have a lot of capacity. Everything was on floppies. And then BBSs came along, and then stores started to come along. So we thought it'd be great to go back in time. I think it was somewhere back in 1988-ish. That's right. We go to the authorities, the Computer Chronicles, in which they have an episode dedicated to shareware and their struggle to figure exactly what it was.
Oh, it's great. Why are you giving this away? How does it work?
How is this even possible?
Don't people take advantage?
Is there a trade of money?
Today we're going to take a look at some of the best examples of shareware, both for the IBM PC and the Macintosh, and we'll meet the man who helped create the concept, Jim Button.
Jim Button gets a lot of credit for coining the term shareware, doesn't he?
Yeah, and it's a little bit complicated because he was an IBM employee back in the 80s, and he wrote a program to help his local church congregation. And as we were just talking about, demand for his program consumed too much of his time, so he left IBM and created his company, Buttonware, released his first program, PC File, which was like a flat file database. I don't know, old technology, right? In 1982, he called that user-supported software. And it really was one of the first examples. There were a couple other terms thrown around, freeware, but that was copyright, so eventually landed on shareware.
Joining us in the studio now, the man they sometimes call the father of shareware, Jim Button, CEO of Buttonware. And next to Jim is Russell DeMaria, author of the book Public Domain Software. Gary?
Jim, what's the background behind shareware? Where'd it come from?
Shareware started really in 1982. And I think Andrew Flugelman probably was first with the idea out of San Francisco, and he produced a product called PC Talk. It was the first shareware product on the market.
There was no free software. There was no open source. There was really not even an agreed upon way to distribute the software.
No, and most of the software you're going to get at this time, well, it all came from big commercial software houses with expensive price tags because it was business users. This was
very expensive.
At the dawn of, personal computing.
And the software originally with shareware was very generous. Some of it was run for as long as you want. There's a few examples of that still. WinRAR
right.
comes from that era. But people, just like some now, struggle to understand free software. Back then, struggled to understand the concept of shareware. And Button says, well, think of it really as just a marketing term.
Shareware is a distribution method and is primarily a way of distributing full function demo disks. Users are invited to share the full function disks with all of their friends and to use them in the comforts of their home. Money changes hands when the user decides that he really likes the program, wants to put it into productive use, and develop a relationship with the author, which would include technical support, printed manual, and things like that.
And what are the typical prices for a package?
Shareware prices go all the way from $15 to $20 up to, there's one product on the market that's $100.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't that sound familiar? Hey, use it if you want. If you like it, help out.
Yeah. And you never really saw shareware as a concept really take off on the Linux desktop. Crossover, I guess you could technically say, does it. They let you try it for 30 days or something like that.
Right. And there's a few, helpful but proprietary applications or source not available that are floating out, but they're definitely the exception.
Yeah. When shareware was really getting going, there was all these different schemes, like we mentioned here at the top, all these different ways of doing things. And the more successful the app was, the more riskier shareware model they could take.
But what about, you were telling us about the decompression and the compression software, about how depending on what you're going to do with it, you have a different price.
Yeah, Stuffit in particular, Ray Lau, who wrote the program, has a very nice scheme. If you're just using it to decompress files that you're getting from some online service or elsewhere, it's free, and there is no donation requested. If you're using it to archive files, to upload, then he requests $18.
Mm-hmm. This doesn't actually even seem that far from the free core model.
No, right? It's a natural analog. Hey, here's some basic features. If you want more, well, we want you to help us maintain and make this sustainable.
Yeah. I kind of became aware of the shareware industry when it was sort of in the CD-ROM era, when it went big time. The CD-ROM revolution meant that you could pack and ship hundreds of shareware applications on a single CD-ROM. And the way it could be sold was the entire application's on this disk. Look at all these great applications. Everything you would ever need is on this CD-ROM. And the companies that nailed that, and you would have like the really sweet shareware companies would have books that you would order, like magazines, and you could go through that, and the magazine might come with a CD-ROM. And I'm not talking like a thin magazine. I'm talking like a Sears catalog magazine.
Put on some music, kick back,
Yeah.
Look at all the options.
Yeah, it was. And there was, of course, there was BBSs that were dedicated to this. And of course, there was Juarez sites that were dedicated to trading a lot of the keys to unlock or crack the shareware.
Right.
Which is still kind of a thing in the Windows world. And so when I came along, it was kind of during this part where the internet hadn't really become a thing yet, but that really changed the game too, especially dial-up. My dad and I used to, have like a collection of shareware apps that we loved, that whenever we could, we'd buy like the family edition and we'd share that, because that became a thing for a while too. We'd get a family license for this. But the thing that I witnessed was the businessification, where a business could come in and make a sweet offer to a developer and say, we want to buy a year's worth of your software where you develop it, but we rebrand it, different icon, different name, and we bundle it with other shareware. And then we'll even put it in a box and we'll put it on the shelf and you'll get a cut of the sales. So the shareware developer would maintain a public shareware edition of their software. And then there would be like a sneaky rebranded version that would be sold in a box. And these big shareware middlemen would come in. They were huge operations. They would come in and organize all of it. The deals with the shipping companies, the magazines, the deal with CompUSA or whoever it was that was going to put it on the shelf. They would manage all of that. And one of the bigger ones, you might remember if you're from my era, was a company called PC SIG.
If you've ever bought shareware, chances are fairly good that you got it from here. This is PC SIG, the world's largest shareware distributor with a library of over 25,000 programs and sales of some 1,000 disks each day.
Well, shareware is the alternative to the high-price commercial spread. The shareware programs that are now available are equal, if not better, than a lot of the commercial programs on the market, and hundreds of dollars less when it comes to registration.
PC SIG is the conduit between shareware authors and users, handling the marketing and advertising for the authors and guaranteeing quality for the customers.
When we get a program in here that's submitted, it goes through our librarian, he looks it over. If it meets what we consider to be good shareware standards, he then sends it out to an independent reviewer.
Then it's reviewed again before it's placed in the catalog. Everything sold here is also supported by full-time staffers.
Technical support.
PC SIG's success has allowed it to branch out into some new areas. It now publishes a bi-monthly magazine. You can buy all 25,000 programs at once on this CD-ROM disc. And you can buy some of the titles now in retail stores. And the company has also branched out into the business of selling hard-to-find videos. In other words, shareware has been very good to PC SIG. It's come a long way from the founder's garage to a company now making several $1 million a year. In Sunnyvale, California, for the Computer Chronicles, I'm Wendy Woods.
Oh, the short reign that they had.
I love that sound at the end there. That was floppy disk moving on an assembly line.
Yeah, right? Yeah. I mean, I tell you, the method of shipping software has changed, and so it has really changed the entire software industry. And the growth of open source and Linux kind of rocked all of this. There was a period of time where commercial software was the default. Closed source software was the default. And even in the Unix era, it was keeping your own innovations. That was really the default. It wasn't until really a bit of a revolution came along and changed everything.
We do have one sector that is taking off today. It is the Linux-related sector. And I thought this might be a good opportunity to say, what is Linux? And I'll answer this question for you. Many of you probably already know, but there are 12 million users out there. A computer operating system developed by hundreds of programmers collaborating on the internet, a challenge to Microsoft Windows NT, very popular for its speed, and so this is what the craze is about.
The internet combined with the free software movement and Linux, and then the explosion of the web in the late 90s was all perfectly timed to fundamentally shift value of software and the entire software industry. And during this transition, shareware as a normal concept of software distribution sort of became an ancient idea that very few things.
Right, it's interesting when you think too, how you interact with it. Shareware, the focus is on delivery of the application as its runtime, a running executable because it's filling some business need. But as computers came more and more into our lives, the need to have that freedom and to be able to modify and control things, that becomes a lot more important.
Yeah. And the shift again to hosted services versus selling directly to consumers. There's more value now in building something that runs on a back end than, in most cases, than building something that consumers use directly in terms of software. Not in all cases, but it's been a big shift. And if it wasn't for it, imagine. I mean, just the world's so much better off for it. I encourage everyone to watch Revolution OS. If you haven't watched it or you haven't watched it recently, boy, is it a time capsule. But it perfectly covers, and I wish we could play a lot of clips from it, but they'd slam us for copyright. But it perfectly covers this transition period we're talking about, this period of time. It really captured it. It captured the mentality, and it really kind of reminds us of the wars we were fighting back then with Solaris and the different Unixes, and it's just really something. We've come a long way.
I mean, we could have been in a world where Windows NT just consumed everything. It was kind of close for a while.
Yeah, good old. Did you notice in that clip they're talking about NT and hundreds of developers? It's so quaint. It really is something special. So, shareware eventually faded away, and it's not completely gone, but I think the big default became the transition to open source software for not just server-side development, but really for anything that you wanted to get a large market adoption. It kind of just became the default.
Right. And I think, having easier modes of communication, that helps, because before, let's say you had your source there, that might be nice, but probably 80% of the people you shipped your shareware to, they weren't going to have the tooling or knowledge to be able to modify that. But now anyone who's interested has easy ways to participate in a code base that's open.
So much has shifted because of the way we can distribute software over the internet and then interact directly with the people that are distributing that software, and then build wikis and forums around that to help people get it set up. And it's just such a huge shift from when you were getting it in a disk in a bag in a little shop somewhere, or buying it from a developer and downloading it over your modem using GetRight, which was also shareware. Best downloader I had back in the day was GetRight. And classic shareware games like Doom. Like, that was how Doom monetized. You could get the first few levels. It was like in-app purchases now. Oh my God, what's old is new. Holy crap. I don't know if you remember this. You can we'll have a link in the show notes. There's a version on archive.org in DOSBox. It's the shareware version of Doom. And so, like, the first bit of Doom, first level or 10 levels, I can't remember, was free. And then if you wanted to play all of the other levels, you had to pay for the shareware. It's kind of not unusual when you think of it in the terms of apps on mobile devices.
No, not at all.
That's how the new Mario Run and Mario games work on the phone. It's like you get the first couple levels, and then if you want to play all of them, you got to pay the in-app purchase.
I guess there's just some core models that work, and it comes back to talking about marketing. It's a way to get your stuff out there, to try before you buy, but then still have a way back to actually support continued development.
Oh, Wes. I love running those old clips. It's very nostalgic. Computer Chronicles was great. Well, but I think, do we have a link to that full video? We should.
Yeah.
We should put a full link in the show notes to that. All right. Well, why don't we get to our picks before we get out of here in this special edition?
Yeah, because turns out, you know what, we do live in the current day. We have access to tons of great open source software, and this is the part of the show where we tell you about it.
2 picks, guys.
Pick overload. Well, that's why it's picks and not pick.
This is okay. All right. Okay. Well, this first one's pretty great, especially for those of us who think the terminal's the future. #terminal future. That sounds bad. That doesn't sound good. So this first one's called Broot, Broot. I was going to try to make Wes say it, but he didn't speak up, so then I had to say it. And it gives you an overview of a directory, even a big one, in a really nice, concise, readable way.
Right. Think of it as a combination of maybe something like if you used NCDo to manage and clean up files, which shows you like an interactive curses-based application to drill down and get disk sizes.
I do. Do you NCDu?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And if you've maybe used the tree command and prints you a little tree of the directory structure, Broot's something of a combination of those, but it's a very interactive environment, so you can sort of drill down. It stores past locations. It's like the tree file viewer manager for your terminal you never knew you wanted.
Huh. I'm sorry, I'm just distracted by your special edition outfit that you wore today. It's just...
Isn't it nice?
Yeah, I mean, it's nice, except for the sequences are a little bit much because we have the lights on, so that's a bit much, but...
Yeah, but did you even know they made this color?
No, I did not. I don't even know how you found that. All right, well, we have another pick here. This one is, again, #terminal future. Oh, that's not good. And I don't know how we say this one. How come I'm always the dumbass that has to read the names? I want you guys.
Tizonia?
It's more fun.
I was going to say that, or Tizona, or...
Tizona?
No, Tizonia. Yeah. It's a cloud music streamer for your terminal. So if you got your Spotify's, or your Google Play Musics, or your SoundClouds, or your YouTubes, maybe you got a Plex, maybe you want to Chromecast this business.
I do.
Well, who wants to do it in a GUI when you can do it in the terminal, right? Cheese, boom, cheesify it.
Absolutely.
That's what we're going to call when you put stuff in the terminal now. We're just cheesifying it.
Cheesifying it? I like it. I'll go with that term.
When you can take something and do it in the terminal, that's putting a slice of cheese on it. That's what we're doing. Putting a slice of cheese on your music app.
Oh, looks like they've got Docker, Snap packages, Ubuntu packages, even one for Raspbian.
Well, it says right here on the website, too, that it's the most powerful cloud music player. So...
Power's good, right?
I mean, you're welcome, everybody. What else do you need to know? It's the most powerful. So.
And apparently it's the first implementation of OpenMax IL 1.2, which I don't know what that is, but... it's the first implementation of it, so
it's a standard for integration of multimedia components into media frameworks to simplify development of audio, video encoders and decoders. Dutchy.
Yeah, from the Kronos Group. Wes. Everybody knows that. God. Everybody knows the mobile market is constantly evolving and demanding ever-increasing multimedia functionality and performance cheese.
Duh. So why am I even here? Let's log out.
Do your homework.
Anyways, we'll put a link to Blot, right? Was that the first one?
Broot.
Oh, yeah, whatever. Broot.
I'm going to make you use it now. You're just being so mean to the poor
Well,
thing.
I mean, I got NCDU and I got DF. I don't need this crap. But it's fine. It's fine. You want to put it in my show? It's fine. We've been streaming for too long. And then Tizona, which just sounds like a delicious calzone.
Broot's written in Rust. So there you go. You'll change
Oh,
your
I
mind
love
now.
it. Oh, okay. All right. Why didn't you say so earlier? That's great. Have you guys heard of Broot? It's a really nice way to view the directories, even big ones. Check it out. We'll have a link in the show notes at linuxunplugged.com/328. Over there at linuxunplugged.com/subscribe is where you can get
338.
You know what? No. We're changing this number now. We're starting over. All right. So it's 328?
338.
338? Where am I? All right, there you go. linuxunplugged.com/338. I would redo it so that way Joe could clean it up, but I think we'll just keep it in there like that. Because, we podcast hard for you, and this is the result, is we get a little loopy. That's what happens. You'd think the caffeine would keep you on the straight and narrow.
Nope, it just slowly destroys you.
And Wes was like, we should be drinking today. And I was like, no, we gotta stay on the straight and narrow.
On the straight and narrow.
Yeah, that's how it went. Anyways, linuxunplugged.com/338 for links to everything, as well as the contact page is over there. We'll be back live at our regular Tuesday, noon Pacific time. You can get that converted at jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar. A massive shout out to our virtual lug. A fantastic showing. Really appreciate everybody making it. And each one of you now go to linuxheadlines.show and subscribe. It's a good little show. I feel, like I'm proud of it or something.
It's a good show.
Like when you when you're a parent of like a kid or a pet, and you watch them learn something, you get proud of them. You know, like the first time you taught your dog to piss outside, and you're like, I'm so proud of that dog. That's how I feel about headlines. You know.
It's also just super handy because sometimes you don't have time to keep up on the news.
Yeah, and who wants your podcast to piss in the house? So.
Wow.
This has been Linux Unplugged, the podcast that won't piss in your house.
And headlines won't either. It's really well trained. It's been domesticated, and I really like it. So check it out at linuxheadlines.show. Go get more Alex and I at self-hosted.show. And I got one more for you. A little bit different, though. Different TLD, so brace yourself. TechSnap.systems.
What?
Yeah, didn't even know .systems was a thing. Turns out it is.
There's so many great things. Turns out .horse is a thing. .audio is a thing. Who knew? Oh, I guess I did. JupiterBroadcasting.com/calendar for the times in the local zone, because we would like you to join us next week, and we'll see you right back here next Tuesday. Unplugged program. Love that song. You know, I'm a big fan now of the longer outros, but the tighter intros.
Yeah.
Bring them in nice and short. Over the years, you can chart the length of the unplugged intro. It's just gotten shorter and shorter and shorter.
Well, you want the intro because you're excited about the content, right? If you're listening to the podcast. But the outro, that's your the long outro gives you time to pick what you're going to listen to next.
Well, when we were new at podcasting, we told ourselves, well, we got to set the tone. We got to set the mood. So we got to have a nice long intro that really sets the mood for my great podcast. And, you know, you see this on YouTube now. Like, so many, like, YouTubers have these really long intros.
Oh, yeah. With fancy graphics.
Like, every RV YouTuber I watch.
Hey, Chris.
Yeah.
Let's get to it. Don't you love it when they say that?
Yeah.
Let's get right to it.
Hey,
After
guys.
like an 8-minute intro.
Yeah. So let's get right to it. Yeah. But podcasts do this too. But then what happens is, if you're a listener and you've heard that podcast 100 times, think about how much of your life is spent just listening to that same intro music, which is coming in a compressed MP3 likely, or a compressed YouTube video.
But I love it. Like, one of the transformational experiences of my year last year was sat in the studio with you listening to the intro of LUP.
Well, you gotta have a little something, I think. You know, you gotta have a little something, so that way when you hear the song, you're like, oh, that's from the show I like.
Right, totally.
So you gotta have a little something. But I think where you go long is in the outro. Where I think the balance is struck really well is in user air. It's got an identifiable boing right in.
That's nice.
But then it's got that beautiful long outro that I listen to every single time.
Right, you don't have to skip it. You just let it fade
I
out.
always
What was that intro like again? What was that intro?
Boing.
A little more oing.
Boing.
Yeah, there you go. I think you nailed it that one. You nailed it that time.
You're trying to get me. All right, we got to pick our title. jbtitles.com.
You know, when you guys were talking about the shareware and the freeware and stuff.
Yeah,
I remember that.
Oh, yeah, and I wanted to come back to the other thing, too.
When you had mentioned WinRAR.
Yeah.
You know, and that was
You
one of
still
those
haven't
ones.
paid
It was
for years, bud? Oh, man.
it was Nagware, right? But the one thing about it that I don't think a lot of people knew is that if you just right clicked on your file, you could extract it and never get nagged.
Oh, I think it was classically famous for that. So I know so tag me in the mumble room if you had other thoughts on the whole developer burnout topic that we discussed, because I knew a couple other people wanted to jump in on that. And I wanted to, because I think what I really appreciated about that blog post that we read was it really made me realize that this isn't a Linux problem or an open source problem. It's a human problem, and you can apply it to software development. You can apply it to basically everything. Anybody who's in a situation where there's a lot of those kind of types of dynamics at play. So, Colonel, I wanted to give you a chance because I saw you had pinged me earlier.
Yeah, I've been thinking for a while now about, is there some way that we could maybe the open source community band together and create an organization that would put a framework around bringing in volunteers to deal with the non-development side of maintaining a project. So things like managing the money coming in, creating a foundation if it gets that far for that project, maybe maintaining the servers for like a website or Rocket Chat or something like that.
Yeah.
Where
Wes and I were actually just brainstorming this yesterday, and I think we both agreed it probably wouldn't work, but the idea is a loose group of volunteers who are kind of like a team that can come in and say, we can help you get these things set up. They don't run it for you necessarily, or maybe they get something immediately resolved for you, but they connect you with the right people to get a foundation established or get a contractor in to help you with the accounting or something like that.
It strikes me as it's kind of the other side of the coin. You know, we've often talked about how we have a lot of open source developers, but not always like
open source
technical
PMOs
writers or right, exactly, or people to do UI work.
Accountants.
Yeah, but no one's managing your backlog for you when you have this open source
communications, troubleshooting, tech support.
Yeah.
And
these are all important roles.
It kind of makes me want to put it together. You know what I mean? Like I want to put together a strike team that like comes. But then we started talking about it. We're like, a lot of these developers are pretty proud of doing it their own way.
That's the other part is it's not for work. You're not getting, right? It's your project and there's a little more ownership and care.
And it's kind of like, hey, knock, knock. We noticed you're doing a bad job. Would you like us to help you solve it? I mean, that, you'd have to really be careful on who you approached, how you approached it.
You gotta be respectful.
Yeah, but maybe if you'd done it long enough, you'd have a reputation where people would come to you. But I kind of was thinking something along the same lines, Colonel. It would be nice. Have a little organization that could pop in and just help manage that. All right, we'll do Drifter first, and then we'll do Pi Crash. So go ahead, Drifter. What were your additional thoughts?
Well, I was just thinking, like, it's definitely a developer thing. Being a developer myself, it's a huge issue to get burned out, and it's really hard, especially when you have like the consumer or user who is approaching you and I got all these things that have to be done, and it, like you were mentioning, it's really difficult if you're not getting out. You don't get those breaks. You burn out really easy. But I think that it's just a human problem. Sometimes it's really easy, whether that's like via our ticketing system or something like that. It's really easy to forget that there's just people behind it. Like it's a person problem. We forget that it's these people. Sometimes they need a little bit of slack on that.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many emails I've gotten where somebody really gives me the third degree about something. Maybe it's generally somebody who's pretty passionate about something, and then I just kind of respond and address a few of their points, and 9 out of 10 times they respond back saying, "Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot you were like a dude that was just talking to another dude, and I was having a bad day." And I mean, I've seen that 1,000 times over the years because people that are part of a project or somebody that's just on Twitter or a celebrity or podcaster is a bit of an abstraction. And so you're communicating with an abstracted concept of a human. You don't see me here with my belly and my beard and my hair that still looks pretty great. And on all of that, you don't see that, right? You have the concept of Chris and you communicate with that concept. And that's when I was saying earlier in the show that this low bandwidth aspect of communication over the internet really matters to like base levels in our monkey brain. All right, so Mr. Crash, I wanted to give you a chance to jump in.
So the thing I wanted to talk about is like burnout is pretty much in everyone's problem. I mean, startup people get burnout, and even students get burnout. I'm a student myself, and I got some problem with burnout a couple of years ago, and it's like the problem is that you need to learn, and so we all need to learn to ask for help before we are burnout, actually. That's the really big problem, and it's a good thing what Rudy Volt wrote. That's just like, I'm asking for help.
Yeah, and just a little understanding, even, just to kind of connect with where I'm at. Brent, what do you think?
Yeah, this is a huge topic and an important one. Yeah. And I feel like there's some way that we can allow our experts, those who are coding, they're best at coding, and yet they have, 100 other tasks that surround that activity to make it successful. We need some open source, it's really in any area, but if we're talking just open source, we need some people who are really passionate open source accountants who can, come and help 10 developers with that area so that the developers or podcasters or photographers or whatever their expertise is can focus on what they're actually really good at and not waste their cycles doing, inefficient and also oftentimes really frustrating work that they just need to get done to allow them to make a living, but aren't jazzed about.
Yeah. Oh, there's a lot of that. I think, too, conversations like this, which remind us that they're human, and conversations like you have on brunch remind us that these are it humanizes these people. And I think that's also pretty helpful. Even if it's only a part of the solution, I think it's still good to do, especially in free software and open source. Yeah, I agree, Drifter. This could be a whole topic, couldn't it? I mean, you could have a whole podcast dedicated to this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I think we could all definitely use it too. Just being able to have like an area just event, right?
Yeah. And that, I mean, I've been bashing on internet communications, but it's at least we have this. And so, I mean, I think you could glass half full it too and say it's not enough, but it's better than absolutely nothing and just being by yourself in a room quiet. It's nice to have this connection. So I think there's some positives to it too. What do you think, Alex?
I think recognizing burnout and being honest with yourself and being able to have the courage to say, yes, I'm not enjoying what I'm doing is a real, it's a real scary thing the first time, working in retail, so my personal experience was I was working for Apple on the Genius Bar, and everything about that told me I should love it because I was repairing stuff and I was enjoying it. The technical side, but dealing with customers all the time just wore me down, and admitting to myself that wasn't what got me out of bed in the morning took me a couple of years, honestly.
From Apple to Red Hat, but it took some analysis, right?
Yeah. And reading books, honestly, on the topic, I would say is a huge help because it gives you, as you're reading, it gives your brain that time to sort of say, yeah, I identify with that, the way that this author is trying to make me feel or whatever it is, and sort of say, it's okay to make mistakes in terms of thinking that this role or, being a developer, it wasn't right for me either because it was too monotonous. But where I am now, I love it because, no 2 days are the same, even though broadly speaking, I do the same thing every day, different cases and whatever come through. So it's a real balancing act, and being honest with yourself is the real key to unlocking. I don't want to say like super cheesy, like happiness, but genuinely, I mean it, that being able to say, I need to change something, and then putting a plan into place and kind of sticking to it, even though it can take several years, is well worth the effort.
Yeah. And sometimes having something to work towards and just being able to see measurable improvements out of a situation is really all it takes to change your attitude around, which kind of doubles your net result. Because you're energized, so you're getting more creative. You're working a little bit harder. You've got energy again, so it's not as much of a slog. And it's just simply by having it doesn't even have to be a master plan, but just a few key milestones that you're working towards, and you can see progress. And you need to be able to realize that progress to actually get the boost. But if you can pull it off, it can be a trick. And it's not possible for everybody. But
building that momentum and sort of
that's what it is.
Right, I just got that done. Okay, it was a tiny piece, but I can keep going.
Yeah.
I'll tell you the other thing as well is it's not necessarily just about huge life-changing stuff like changing job or emigrating, right? It's about incremental change as well, making small tweaks to your morning. Like Brent said earlier, take the 20 minutes and do the yoga.
Yeah.
But do it regularly and build that into your routine.
Or do the walk.
Node Runner's saying in the IRC, get a standing desk so you can change it up, or go and, if you're working from home, go and work on the couch for 20 minutes or whatever it is, you know.
I agree. Yeah, I actually did that today. Before the show, I was out in the living room of the studio working from there just to change it up, change up the energy flow a little bit, so that way I get a little more peppy for on air, get myself work going again and get out of the sleepy chair that I've been in since like 7 a.m. And yeah, it actually does work. Just little tricks like that seem silly. That's how I describe it. That seems like a silly thing to do, but sometimes it works, and you just got to find the ones that do for you. If you think this is something we could talk more about, let me know. You can either tweet me at ChrisLES or linuxunplug.com/contact, because I think, Maybe we do an extra on it or something like that. I don't know what that avenue would be. People in the chat room are saying do a special on it because it does apply so much to open source development, but it's broader than that too. So
absolutely. Well, I would like to think that Mr. DeVault got something out of even writing that post. Simply putting those words down and acknowledging that himself.
Yeah.
And there's a level of it being just therapy, for lack of a better word, to sit down and put your thoughts out like
even
that.
Just admit it to the public, right?
Exactly, and then put those thoughts, somewhere where the public can actually read them and understand the struggles that you're going through. I think helps a lot, and it's kind of a first step to acknowledging that and changing the way that you operate, so that you do have that little bit of downtime, and you don't necessarily have to schedule every single event of your your life to try and have a little bit of time for your family, or that time just to walk around the block and get out of a headspace for a moment.
I think, I hope at least, and I think you probably did hear from a few people who are like, right there with you, man. So much on all of that, because I think it resonated with a lot of us listening to it. Okay, well, I have something kind of special for us that I saved for the post show, because it's probably too retro. Maybe Wes and I are the only ones that remember this, but this just felt extremely appropriate with today's topic. So I leave you with this.
If you've ever bought shareware, chances are fair.
Not that. Damn it. Hold on.
But I just wanted to make one copy.
You say, I'll just make a copy for me and a friend. Then he'll make one and she'll make one, and where will it end? One leads to another, then 10, then more. And no one buys any discs from the store. So no one gets paid and they can't make more. The posse breaks up and that closes the stores. Don't copy that floppy. So let me break this down for you. No Carmen San Diego, no more Oregon Trail. Tetris and the others, they're all gonna fail. Not because we want it, but because you're just taking it. Disrespecting all the folks who are making it. The more you take, the less there will be. The discs become fewer, the games fall away. The screen starts to shrink and then it will fade. Programs fall through a black hole in space. The computer world becomes bleak and stark. Loses its life and the screen goes to dark.
Welcome to the end of the computer age.
Wow, that breakdown was intense.
All right, I'll stop. Yeah, it's like very bleak. It's like the part where he's like, this is going to be gone and this is going to be gone and the computer age is done. It's like, whoa, dude, calm down.
I wonder how much you got paid to write that don't copy, that floppy jingle.
Don't know.
It was nice. It was nice. I do have one question on the top of the show where we were talking about the robotic cat. Where do you think you plug it in to recharge it?
It's butthole.
Cheesy.
Well, I mean, if you look at
buy you one of these now, man.
I think you do. If you look at the cutaway, that's where the power circuitry looks like it runs.
House Trained podcast isn't bad. Sharing became.
I think Brent came up with the best one personally. Developing burnout.
Developing burnout. That's not bad.
I like success through vulnerability. That's a good one too.
Vulnerability. What was it?
Success through
vulnerability. That's not bad. Sharing is caring. I like that one. Yeah. Yeah, okay. Go vote, jbtitles.com. We got less votes, but we got a pretty good spread, so I think people got to focus in. Got to lock it in. I need like terms, Maybe if I just hype it, like go over now, let's vote for the new title of Linux Unplugged, episode 338.
If you don't vote, it will be the end of the computer era. So
yeah, I know. God,
keep that in mind.
I gotta find that really quick because that was so bad.
It's right at the end.
Yeah. Where did I put the clip though? Where did I? Oh, it's on this. It's on this thing. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's right here. So check this out. This is just a little bit before the end.
Welcome to the end of the computer age.
And also the
break this down for you. No Carmen San Diego, no more Oregon Trail. Tetris and the others, they're all gonna fail. Not because we want it, but
it's so
No more Oregon Trail.
I know. Well, fuck. Now I'm motivated.
Right? Should never have copied that floppy.
Yeah, you shared it with your friend, and he shares it with his. Where's it going to end?
We also need to get the you wouldn't download a car clip.
Oh yeah, that'd be great. I totally would. By the way, would download a car.
I'm gonna love it when 3D printing has got to the point where I can print a car.
I'm waiting for 3D printed houses. I think I heard there's some construction.
It's possible.
Happening.
Yeah. You can just do it with concrete instead of plastic.
Yeah.
There's already machines out there for it.
But the houses are circular right now.
I wonder where we would be with the whole shareware, freeware, if we didn't have these broadband internet connections. If we were still all tied to a dial-up connection.
It'd be shit.
I
where
miss
would
going
Linux
to the
be,
store and picking up Computer Shopper and getting my.
I do miss
CD
that. I do miss having the store.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Monster Truck Madness on it or whatever it was.
I do
Monster
miss
Truck
that.
Madness. I think I played that.
Success through vulnerability. Have you tried the terminal? I'm going to refresh, see where we're at. Success through vulnerability is at 9, and developing burnout is at 7 votes. House Trained Podcast. So we got a spread still. It's going pretty wide. We gotta get that honed in, I think.
Well, in the meantime, I'm shipping you that clip I was just talking about.
Oh yeah, already, huh?
Well,
you had it at the ready.
Are we ready to all stop this file here?
Oh yeah, we all stopped a bit ago. Bruh.
Cheese has just got a little extra today.
Yeah,
like a second sprinkle of Parmesan.
Little extra cheese.
Nothing wrong with that, unless you're lactose intolerant.
You can have my cheese.
I'll take it.
All right. You ready? Does it need any processing, or is it...
Oh, yeah, I didn't listen to it. I just found the video and downloaded it.
Oh, so it's the entire video?
Yeah, it's 43 seconds.
Oh.
But we could probably find the clip.
Should we just raw dog it and see what happens?
We should.
All right.
What are the risks? Nothing.
Nothing. What could possibly go wrong?
Best case, we get a car that somehow downloads.
All right, after this, we're going to pick our titles. So we need to, if you voted for one that's not in the top 2 or 3, you got to go recast your vote. You got to be your own electoral college on this one because we got to focus in on a winner. In the meantime, remember that piracy is a crime.
I vote for Trump.
All right. Well, they don't actually say the phrase, which is fantastic. And we get to enjoy that beautiful, I think that was like 2004 era, which is great.
They blatantly made that to try and sound like it was cool, like The Matrix or something, huh?
I think so. I don't know that they actually managed it, though. It was actually some copyright office in Singapore that commissioned it.
I'm learning far more about that than I ever wanted to.
Yeah, I know, right?
Hey, Wes.
Yeah.
Hey, Wes. Hey, Wes. I thought it was something that might go wrong when we play that video without checking it first. It might just be a video with nothing but visuals.
I think that's. I don't think that's called going wrong. I think it was just a pleasant sort of voting music.
It was kind of nice. You're right about that. All right, so what do we get to? Let's go see. I got scared by the toilet. My heart's a little
scared by the toilet.
Well, I was as I'm, what?
Should you even tell us?
No. Is this something you saw there?
No. Shut up. Let me tell the story before it gets worse. Okay? So, like when I walk away from the toilet, what I do is I flush and then I walk away like an explosion in an action movie. I'm like that guy. I'm like cool guy walking
Sort
away.
of like throw the toilet paper roll behind you.
And I'm walking away as it's flushing. I'm cool guy. Well, so I'm walking away. Only one thing, I'm not normally a seat upper lever. I'm not that kind of guy. But during a live show, I leave the seat up to just reduce the time if I got to run from the mic and piddle and run back, right?
Sure.
Especially if I've had like 7 energy drinks in a day or something like that.
You wouldn't do that.
And so I leave it up. And so I'm doing my cool guy walk away after the flush, and the lid, even though I'm like at the door, comes slamming down. I haven't touched it, but some sort of like air shift or something happened, and
Demon.
when you full slam a lid without it's just so loud.
It's a clap, yeah.
Whoo! Gotta tell you,
You get one of them soft close toilet seats. bro.
Well, I need to get me. Apparently, I need to get me a smart toilet. Obviously, so
You
I'm
get one of
just
those Japanese toilets.
I'm just a little rattled, but I'll be all right.
I'm glad everything's good. There.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. All right. So it looks like success through that is actually really great voting music.
See?
It looks like success through vulnerability submitted via Mr. Silent Drifter is our wiener.
More like not so silent Drifter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Which, thank you, Drifter.
Yeah. Toads. Okay. I'm good with that. That came up a couple of times, so I'm good with that. People are going to think software vulnerability.
True.
They're not going to think emotional, open yourself up vulnerability.
Either way,
Until
they'll
they
click
listen
it.
to the show.
And then they'll realize how fucking stupid they were,
Yeah.
right? Idiots.
Oh, this is just clips from Computer Chronicles.
Computer Chronicles? I wonder, since we have such hard times pronouncing names of software now.
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine 20 years from now when like all of the even super obscure names are taken?
I don't even know what's going on. I'm getting so loopy.
Yeah. Like names aren't going to have any vowels. They aren't going to have any letters. They're just going to be shapes.
Bro, what are you talking about the future? You want to come up with a new podcast? Good luck getting a name that isn't already in use.
Emoji only.
I mean, it's
think,
mostly
is
just
the
a
future.
podcast that existed for like 2 months or 3 episodes.
Yeah,
or
that's
something.
so thing. That's such
Well,
a
when Dylan's doing this like 25 years from now, like
in VR.
Can you imagine the struggle he's going to have like pronouncing the names of software?
Well, hopefully he's making it for Mars, and it's just hit the
Linux
reset.
VR action show.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Brent's right. I think you do it via emoji. So you just got to claim your emoji space now. Get it while
Get those URLs.
The
if you
emoji's
can.
hot.
I would love an emoji TLD. Just saying.
Podcasts won't matter in 20 years. Deep fakes will do it all for us.
Did you see that cute local ghost suggestion? Like you,
We don't know this.
you put like a little like set up your host file. So for like local host, that it's like you just alias it to be the ghost emoji.
You can do that?
Yeah.
Does the system read it?
You can type in an emoji to your like bar and it'll translate it. There's
That's
There's
awesome.
a scheme to make it work.
Man, that is great. So anyways, sorry I'm a little jumpy. Too much caffeine in a toilet. It doesn't sound
There's
good.
chicken poop spray earlier.
Piling it on here.
I just was really shocked by it. Like, I mean, I don't even understand. I was on the other side of the room. What closed the toilet lid?
A ghost.
It's a little weird.
I mean,
Maybe it was clapping to congratulate.
I assume like you said action, so I assume you were moving pretty rapidly away
Yeah.
from the toilet.
Yeah, I was.
So you probably you caused some air currents. To
You
start moving.
think my cool guy turnaround caused a convection
Yeah.
effect
Yeah.
that hit the back of the lid, convected around the toilet, and hit the back of the lid, and pushed
like
it
an
over.
Air fryer.
That's my working theory, but I'm gonna need you to get some delivery food, and then we'll do some more testing.
Yeah, we're gonna have to test this for sure. Yeah, that part about the delivery food in there. I was eating a KFC chicken pot pie while we were on the phone with Dell today. I was that guy. Like, oh man, if that didn't those calls we did just minutes before the show. Wes was cutting that while we were doing the pre-show.
If you hadn't said, they would have never known.
I know they wouldn't. But this one was just down to the wire because
Was it a pot pie or was it one of those KFC bowls that has like the corn and the gravy and all that stuff?
No.
That's weird.
It's not the bowl. Not all the KFCs have this, but they don't. It's a real shame because I think this is a special item in the fast food industry. Not a lot of fast food restaurants offer something like this. The KFC pot pie is of a bygone era, and it's in an aluminum bowl with a delicious crust on top. So it's not a full pot pie.
Right, just the top crust.
Just the top crust. And they make them in batches every few hours. So, sometimes you get a really fresh one. Sometimes.
Did you get a really fresh one?
Yeah.
If you slip a 20 to the guy, then you can get him to call you when they may put the batch in, so you know.
They've got like pulled white chicken in there for the meat, and carrots and peas, and it's in a nice gravy.
Oh, this is sounding pretty good.
With some taters in there, and yeah. The thing is, I actually like that the whole thing isn't a pie crust, that only the top is pie crust, because I don't need all that.
You don't need all them carbs?
Yeah. So you get that son of a bitch with a $2.79 chicken little, and you're good to go. So you can eat that while you're talking to Dell about their hardware. If, you're in my line of
that's
business.
my pot pie.
Pot pie.
I still can't get over the Raspberry Pi cat.
And by pot, I mean cannabis. No.
Right, that's why not everyone has it, because it has to be legal in your area.
Could you imagine a cannabis pie? Yikes.
I don't think you would do that. You'd just be asleep afterwards.
Yeah,
Right?
welcome to the Nap podcast. Nap Unplugged.
On the website, they call it a true KFC classic.
It really is. It really is something special, and not every KFC has it, and it's not like any other item at a fast food restaurant. It really is. With Alex, I went to the original home of KFC.
Ooh.
To the Colonel's.
Knocking on the door?
Turns out...
What up, Kern?
Turns out some businessmen have, really inspiring stories. And, they're just, they've come from, these horrible backgrounds, and they've turned things around, businessmen and women. Really inspiring stories. The Colonel just killed fuckers. That's what he did. He killed people to get to the top and buried them out in places and was a rough dude and played hardball.
Why do you think he's always wearing some of those gloves, right?
So when you learn about the history, it's oh, damn, this guy was basically in the mafia but for himself. He was really a hard player. But anyways, they've got the quote unquote original, air quotes, KFC. Why were we there, Alex? What were we doing? Was it with you? Where am I?
You guys were on your way to do the
Alex?
the recording.
Where are we? Yeah, I remember. Yeah, it was to see Wendell.
This cat video though, dude, it still got me.
It's so freaky.
And it's it shows them playing with the cat with the little the feathers or here's a.
I think I want to redo that pre-show. Have we exported yet? No.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to read.
It's so bad.
I'm going to.
Hey, Chris.
I think it's a cool project, but.
Did you know that KFC, they actually have a different recipe for their chicken? The one that is actually the original is actually Lee's chicken now.
Oh. They've evolved the recipe, the secret recipe. How dare they?
What?
It's true.
Lee's chicken.
Yeah, Lee's chicken, they actually, it's a honey dip, and then they batter it, and it's a pressure cooker. They cook it under pressure.
Yeah. All right.
I'm pretty sure that's how KFC
They do. Yeah,
does
they pressure fry it is what they do.
And that's how Chick-fil-A does it as well.
Yeah, buddy. It's a good way to do it.
All the best chicken.
All right, I got to eat, so we should probably go. Get your flax up to the horse if you haven't saddled them up yet. And I think we're it.
Trumpy Bear. Yeah, have you seen Trumpy Bear?
Sounds delicious. My kid's got these giant gummy bears that Dia brought back from Mexico. She brought home Mexican candy. Surprisingly fun. It was a lot of fun to try the different candies. They're very different. Kids love the rock candy.
All right, yeah, I'm just going to drop that link here in the IRC.
All right.
Everyone can click on it at their leisure.
Very good.
It's wonderful.
Well, do we have anything else? Or are we good? We're good. We're done, right? This is
I think we good.
So we'll be back. There's two BSD Nows live tomorrow. So if you want some more live content, there's definitely more coming. But we will not be here next week because I'll be doing the Project Off-Grid installation stuff. But anyways, thank you for making it. Why don't we leave you with some other fast food music? Mumble Room, appreciate you. Thank you very much for coming. Great turnout. You guys, I think I got really fired up just seeing everybody, so I really appreciate it. Hope to see you in 2 weeks. Goodbye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Great shows.
Love you.
Thanks, Hasta la
Hugs and
vista.
kisses, Mumble Room. I miss you already.
Thanks for everything.
Oh my God, I miss the Mumble Room. All right.
They'll be back. As long as you come back, they'll be back.
All right. Okay.
IRC, you're good too.
Is that all you had? I thought you had something more.
I
You
got
looked
some like
you had-
Szechuan sauce.
All right, I love that IRC room though. Can I tell you about that IRC room for a second?
Ooh.
Best IRC room. And think about all the IRC rooms.
There are so many, but none of them have like the flavor of ours.
I love it. It's like coming home to like clean sheets. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Love it. Thank you, IRC. Thank you for making it. Please join us next time. And, I say one of you ought to just show up tomorrow and ask the boys if they've heard about Butter FS and its advanced features. Just have a little fun. But don't tell them I sent you. All right, thank you for making it.